that. That's how we start in Pride Month? That's how we start in Pride Month? Really?
My state radio.
Hey, you better clean that shit up.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, yeah.
Oh, what's going on?
I love how you have Goggins in the background, man. Nice.
You said what?
I love how you have Goggins in the background.
You know what? They might as well be.
I'm talking about no, bro. The background, bro. You have Walter Goggins in your background? For the studio.
No, these are. No, I don't.
Bro. That's the picture you have in the back. No. The picture that we have in our studio, like StreamYard studio.
Yeah. Oh,
did you mean to do that?
Yes, I did. That's kind of one of those. If you know, you know.
What's the? I mean, I know this show and I know what happened, but what's the reference? What's the relevance here?
You don't know the reference?
I know this scene. I'm saying, what does this have to do with whatever you're trying to say? I don't know. Or should I just leave it out, leave it ambiguous?
I think you should just.
We'll talk about it afterwards.
I think, given the subject matter that we're going to be discussing today,
okay, all right.
I found it to be quite like. I'll be honest with you. That was one of the most chilling sequence, like one of the most chilling scenes I'd ever watched.
Is that when he was telling the story of what his friend was telling the story of what he did? Yeah. That was a pretty wild scene. And the crazy thing is that probably is the story for some people. Like, I mean, sounds like like even somebody like Diddy, for example, like it doesn't sound that different from something that he might have got up to.
Yeah, exactly.
Slippery slope, man.
Yeah, people are already noticing. So, speaking of backdrops, welcome to Apostate Radio, ladies and gentlemen. You probably don't want the boys and girls or the children of all ages listening to this particular episode. I'm just saying that right now.
We should have the parents. Hopefully, parents will be listening, and teachers, and therapists, and politicians.
Exactly. We want everyone but kids to watch this because quite seriously,
maybe even teenagers actually too. Maybe they need to hear this.
Yeah. Because
it concerns them.
Yeah, today we're getting into some pretty hefty subject matter. But before I get into that, I got a couple of things. I am, of course, Isaiah Carter. I am no longer coming to you live from the County of Kings, the People's Republic of Brooklyn. This weekend was a massive move. I moved from Brooklyn to the Bronx. So now I am in Uptown. I'm in the north. I am in Jonas's backyard, Jonas Bronx. So, and it has
the Boogie
been
Down.
The Boogie Down, yes.
Boogie Down Productions now. It's going to be the name of our production company.
Boogie Down Productions. Isn't that name already taken? It's got to be already taken. Yo, my fiance, like just real quick, my fiance is going to teach me like everything about the Bronx. Like she's been growing up in the Bronx since she was like 8 years old. So so I am about to get like the full treatment, and I'm looking forward to it.
There we go.
Yeah. So anywho, so there's that. I do want to give a quick shout out to my boy, DC United defender. And I know so many guys on this team. DC United defender Connor Antley. I'll play the clip later, but scored his very first goal last night in MLS. First goal in MLS on a set piece. Shout out to Connor Antley, Mr. Undersized. I don't understand how the hell he got that title because the dude is almost as tall as I am. But no, when I tell you Connor Antley and his family are some of the most solid people I've ever met. They are fantastic people. And I love them all dearly. And also, yeah, I think that's about it. Oh, Matter of fact, I'll talk about the last thing because I actually ran into an event on the way home. It's been crazy. Anyways, so yes, I am coming from uptown, from the boogie down, from the north, and of course, my man to the right on your screen is coming to you from the land of a Pete's.
Beats.
Mr. Nostra Chavez.
Mm.
What's going on, man?
Not much, man. I'm ready to talk to Mia though. Probably talk to our guests. We got a lot to cover today.
Yeah, man, you ain't lying. We got a lot
on.
to get to. We got a lot to get to. So, of course, before that, we want to encourage you to follow the show's page, Apostate Radio NY. We do show updates and also little bit of smack talking here and there. You can also, if you feel so inclined, you can support the show at buymeacoffee.com/apostate radio. Oh boy. So let's get to this, man. With this being June 1st, and this being the first day of what I have dubbed woke Ramadan. Yeah. Woke Ramadan. For the last 10 years, Americans have been subjected to something that none of us should have ever been subjected to. We have watched as a movement that started off as something, understandable, honorable, has turned into something rather horrific. We have all fallen down the slippery slope that was promised us as what was once called gay rights became LGBT rights. And then LGBT added the Q once the T was added, and then the Q was added. And then all hell seemed to break loose. The gender cult has been has been the foremost issue of our time. And it has been forced onto us by elites of all stripes. We're talking millionaires, billionaires. We're talking an industry that started off with a couple clinics here and there, and then ultimately became endorsed by the President of the United States and Democrat states all across the country, and even other nations across the Western world. Tonight, we're going to be speaking to someone who has been chronicling this evil most recently, and also most in detail, this organization known as WPATH. And we'll get more into that in a second. But ladies and gentlemen, I want to present to you the senior fellow at MacDonald Laurier Institute, the director of Gen Spect in Canada, co-host of the Beyond Gender podcast, and also the author of the WPATH files herself. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Miss Mia Hughes.
Mia.
Good evening.
Good evening.
It is great to talk to you. This is the first, we've been following each other for a while, but I believe this is the first time we've actually spoken in this forum.
It is our first time, yes.
Yeah, this is great. I mean, this is a little thing that me and Nos have been doing now for a couple of months now, and it's been fantastic. So if you wouldn't mind, Mia, please introduce yourself to our audience. Who are you, and what has brought you here?
Okay. My name is Mia Hughes. I am a Brit living in Canada. I married a Canadian and I moved to Canada in 2010. I was in 2019. I was minding my own business, homeschooling my 3 children, when I discovered that something was not quite right about this whole trans rights issue. So I lean to the left politically. I suppose I'm one of those left UGs. There are many of us now.
Apostates. I mean, that's what we're called here.
Okay.
That's what we are. That
We
is
are
what
all-
we are.
That's kind of the basis of the podcast, is that we're all we're former people on the left.
Okay. All right. Well,
You're
then I'm
you're
in
in
the
good
right
hands here.
place. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And it was the gender thing. I figured things, I realized what was going on in gender clinics. I realized that we were supposed to believe that these men were actually women, that we're supposed to believe they're lesbians and everything. And I was not a controversial person. I was a bit woke. That's embarrassing, but I was. But I just started tweeting about the issue, and my account grew really quickly, but it was in the pre-Elon days, so I kept getting suspended. And then
That's fun.
yeah, it was those were not good days on Twitter at all. You couldn't say anything without losing all of your followers and starting from zero again.
Crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, but my story is strange in that I just from speaking out on Twitter, first I got a job. I was offered a job reporting for the Post Millennial, so I worked full time covering gender for the Post Millennial, and then from there. I wrote a Twitter thread that Michael Schellenberger really liked. And so Michael Schellenberger offered me a job, and I was writing for Public, first of all. As soon as I went over to write for Michael, someone gave him what are now known as the WPATH files, which was this stack of leaked documents from the World Professional Association for Transgender Health's internal messaging forum. And so Michael gave them to me. I wrote the WPATH files report, and then that was a big story last year. And then I'm still very much writing about gender. I now focus all of my energy, most of my energy, on Canada, because goodness me, things are a mess here.
How did Canada become the mess that it is? Like how, like, Canada seemed like such a wonderful country. You live there now, and like what has that been like for you? And what has it been? I mean, do shout to Chris Elston, by the way, who's another Canadian that I know on the other side of the country, on Vancouver. But like, how has that been for you? Be one, as a woman, and two, as a resident of the country.
Well, it's been interesting for me because I came here in 2010. And so when I made the decision, at the time I just had 1 child, I now have 3. And at the time I made the decision to move here, we had the choice between England and Canada, and there was no question, there was no doubt about it. Canada was the best country to move to out of the 2. And it's not the country now, the country that I immigrated to in 2010, it's not that country anymore. So I have been here basically for the entire decline, because little did I know, right, that there was this deranged body mutilation cult poised and ready to pounce and capture the entire nation. And that basically started in 2012 was when it all starts to spread. But it is now a nation, obviously, from coast to coast. We do have Alberta, so we do have a little oasis of sanity in the midst of all of this deranged cult nonsense, in that Alberta is going into the right direction. But from coast to coast, we are like blue America, basically. We truly are. Yeah, we really are.
That's not good.
There's been there is some pushback, and it's growing, and it is inspiring to me. And I do think the convoy ignited something in Canadians that wasn't there before, because I've been speaking on this since 2019, and there was almost no support whatsoever in the beginning. But the convoy brought people together from all walks of life, and it ignited some kind of feisty activist spirit in people. And we did gain much more support from that point on. But something else that I've noticed is really weird is when I first arrived, Canadians were fiercely patriotic, that it made me uncomfortable because I'm a Brit and we're not typically overtly patriotic. And so I would go downtown on Canada Day, which is July 1st, and Canadians are draped in the Canadian flag and they're really excited to be Canadian. And it baffled me. And then Trudeau comes along and turns Canada into a shameful genocidal nation. And, they discover like 215, they say it's a mass grave. I think it's just a bunch of rocks near what was a residential school. And it's supposed to be like unmarked graves of Indigenous children. So
yeah, that's never been substantiated, right, Mia?
No, they've never found a single body. It's most likely just rocks. But
that was big news too.
We had our flags at half-mast for 6 months. Trudeau's kneeling at the gravesite.
Yeah, I remember that.
We're this hateful genocidal nation and everybody's ashamed of being Canadian. We have land acknowledgements in
When did that happen, Mia? When was that news? When did that news come out originally where people started kneeling down? Was that Canada trying to make their own George Floyd moment or something? Like they want to jump into the party? Is that what that was?
I'm going to say 2021, but I actually can't be sure. I think it was 2021. Yeah, I think session. And the thing is, so I have one of my children was born on Canada Day, so we would always go down. So I have witnessed Canada Day, the evolution of Canada Day since I've been here. At first, it was kind of cringe that Canadians were so patriotic. Then it becomes we're a hateful genocidal nation and everybody's so somber and nobody's celebrating. And there were people wearing orange T-shirts and screaming at people that there was a genocide. And then after the convoy, after COVID, I feel like it's finally coming back. We went downtown for Canada Day last year and it felt like Canada Day. It felt like Canadians were finally realizing that, yeah, Canada is actually a really great place to live. And it's a wonderful country. We're not genocidal. And maybe we should be proud of it. So I have hope because I love Canada. I think it comes across that I dislike Canada, but that's not true. I chose to live here and I am convinced that it can one day be the nation that I immigrated to.
Yeah, I think it goes along with the entire just wave of anti-West, hating your own country across the Anglosphere especially, but probably across other countries as well that don't speak English as a first language in Europe. But definitely Australia, England, the UK in general, Canada, United States, where it's just everybody's being taught and inundated with this message that, America's terrible, the West is terrible, everything white people ever did is colonial exploitation and oppression and patriarchal this and that, right? And it's like, how do you expect the country to have a good self-regard, have people willing to fight and die for it if they need to, come together and make it better? How do you expect to do that when you're constantly telling yourselves that you are one of the worst things that ever happened on planet Earth? It's really what they're doing. But it reminds me, the analogy I like to use is it reminds me of, imagine every time you go to a family gathering or family reunion and everybody just brings up the worst things that everybody did in the family. And they're just yo, remember he did this? That was terrible. No, I'm such a bad person. And it's just would you even want to go to these family reunions anymore? Would you even value these people?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's not good. Terrible. And I did find it cringe and I feel I was wrong. Canadians being proud of being Canadian, I want that back. I want to see them celebrating, and there is a lot to be proud of. So let's hope.
So Mia, let me ask you this: where in the UK are you originally from? If you don't mind me asking.
I'm from Cheshire. Do you know the county of Cheshire?
The only thing I know about Cheshire is the cat.
Yes.
And how much from Alice in Wonderland.
Is that by London, Mia?
No, it's not. It's northwest. So if you know Manchester and Liverpool, Liverpool is Merseyside, Manchester is Lancashire, and the county that is sandwiched underneath between the two is Cheshire.
I mean, I might be wrong, but it sounds like to me, it sounds like you have like a London accent or something like that. I feel like you don't have like a Northwest accent, like from the Manx I've heard or the Scousers I've heard. But
I don't think I have a regional accent, but really,
maybe that's what it is. Yeah.
When I'm here, everyone here for some reason thinks I'm Australian, and when I and when I go home, everyone thinks I'm American.
Yeah,
isn't that weird?
That is funny.
So I must ask this question. I know it's a bit of a derailment, but I must ask this question: who's your Premier League team?
Liverpool, of course.
Liverpool. Oh, congratulations.
You'll never walk alone. I got a few friends who are Liverpool fans. I'm sorry about Trent Alexander-Arnold though.
Okay.
He's leaving. So, anyway, sorry. But no, so WPATH. I've hated this organization for a long time. And for me, the whole gender madness didn't start in 2015. The one when I started noticing it. I started noticing this madness in, I want to say 2011 or 2012. I remember when
was it Caitlyn Jenner maybe time?
No, it's before Caitlyn Jenner.
Because I remember South Park was making fun of it with the rhinoplasty stuff. If I can swim with the dolphins, or that man.
Oh my God,
they were way ahead of their time.
That was great. Oh yeah.
But so no, funny. Like so true. I remember. This is we're talking about for South Park. The member berries.
Yeah,
I remember.
So it was when Piers Morgan had his show on CNN.
Oh yeah, back in the day.
And I remember, we going back. I remember when he was interviewing this individual by the name of Janet Mock. And Janet Mock had written this book called Redefining Realness. And Mock was on this show with Piers, and Piers was like, okay, so your name used to be Charles, you were born a boy, and all this thing, and just basically violated every rule in their invisible instruction manual, right? And I remember because it was two interviews. Like the first interview got the entire social media atmosphere set on fire about it. And then that's when I first heard the madness of trans women are women.
In 2012, are you saying?
Yeah, it was whenever. I'm trying to remember when this episode was. When it was Piers Morgan, he was on CNN, and it was one. It was one interview that was done fairly normally, right? And then the social media backlash that took place, and this is where I first heard trans women are women, and then Mock was invited back on, and then the switch up. That's when you started. That's when you started hearing all of the, trans people are, we deserve to be loved, and all of this stuff, and it was just like a lot of the same tropes that you hear, that we've heard over the last 10 or so years, right? When did you? I want to before I get to WPATH. When did you start noticing that something was wrong?
Oh, something was wrong was 2019. So I noticed it all. For me, I don't think I noticed anything before 2015 and the Jenner moment. I don't even think, because Time magazine announced the beginning of the trans rights movement in June 2014 with Laverne Cox on the cover.
Yeah, I remember that.
The headline was "The Transgender Tipping Point, America's Next Civil Rights Frontier." But I missed that one, and I remember Jenna, and I do remember Jazz. I Am Jazz.
Yeah.
And in my defense, I was a mother. At that point, I had 3 young children, and I wasn't sleeping, and I had no political. I wasn't following politics. I was, desperately tired and changing nappies all the time and breastfeeding. So I was aware of it, and it seemed strange. Trans women and women, what? That's weird.
That can't be right.
I couldn't see the harm, right? And all of my friends are super woke, and they're all trans women and women and everything. And I just, like, all right, whatever, I'll go along with it. I don't believe it, but I'll go along with it. And it wasn't until 2019. I can tell you the exact date, actually. It was December 19th, 2019. It was the day that J.K. Rowling first weighed into the gender debate, because she tweeted in support of Maya Forstater, a tax consultant in the UK who'd lost her job for saying men are not women.
Yes.
So I understand why people support it. Less so now, because, in 2015, there was no opposition. There were people who thought it was, misguided and harmful, but they got no mainstream coverage. They had no voice. So I understand, because I supported it simply because I couldn't see the harm. The very moment I saw the harm was the very moment that I stopped supporting it and actively started speaking out against it.
And what harm did you see, Mia? Like that was like, oh, that was a tipping point. Exactly.
Well, the first thing on that day was we're supposed to believe they're actually women. I just, trans women are women, like, all right, like trans women are women, but they're not really women. And surely nobody believes they're really women. And then the very fact that people were furiously angry that J.K. Rowling had said sex was real.
Violently angry.
Really outrageous. Yeah. And then, I remember on the very same day seeing lesbians, the tweet, there was mayhem underneath the tweet, and lesbians were arguing with trans activists because lesbians were saying that, trans women are not lesbians. Basically, these men are not lesbians, and the trans activists were getting furiously angry. How dare you say that? Of course they're trans women are women, and of course they're lesbians. And I'm like, of course. Male lesbians? Are you out of your mind? This is just ridiculous.
Male lesbians used to be a joke that high schoolers would tell.
Right.
I'm dead serious. That's
They brought it to life. They brought the joke to life. And it's not funny in the sense that even now in 2025, we are still in Australia this year. They ruled that lesbians do not have the right to meet without these, and I'm going to say it, they're paraphilic men. Men who think they're lesbians are men with a paraphilia. It's called autogynephilia. So these lesbians in Australia are not allowed to meet without the presence of paraphilic men. So yes, it's funny, it's hilarious, like male lesbians brought to life, but it's hugely detrimental to the lesbian community. And then there is a flip side. There's a bunch of women who think that they're men who invade the spaces of gay men. So it does affect gay men as well.
Yeah.
Wait, Maya. I'm sorry, Maya. So I'm so confused. So they're not allowed to have a gathering of lesbians unless there's like a male lesbian there, like to have.
No, that would be weird.
Yes,
that could be coming.
To organize.
No,
I must have misheard you.
No, that's me not explaining it well. They are not allowed to exclude men who identify as lesbians. So if a man who identifies as a lesbian wishes to join their lesbian gathering, they cannot say no.
They can't reject them. I see.
They cannot. No, they don't.
That's ridiculous.
Wow,
that is ridiculous. I mean, the way I see it, I honestly, the way you explained it, I was thinking, wait a minute. So women who want to have meetings amongst themselves now have to have a male now have to have a male present. I mean, that sounds
like a male chaperone.
Yeah, a chaperone. usually that'd be the other way around, but
So Mia, what do you think is the percentage of male lesbians that elected to not remove their genitals?
Ooh, that's a tough one because, all right, the male lesbian, it's very important that you have to, first of all, just follow the logical steps. So he is a man who identifies as a woman, but he's a heterosexual man who thinks he's a woman. So therefore, he thinks he's a woman attracted to women, and that makes him a lesbian.
But you probably wouldn't want to cut off your junk if you're still going after women, I imagine.
Probably not.
I mean, I feel like that's something you'd probably want to have.
It goes against. It just kind of defeats the whole purpose, you know.
But you're trying to scissor with your South Park.
The thought of that.
Well, but
vaginoplasty, whatever the hell they call those things.
It's important though to understand autogynephilia though, because there's different types of autogynephilia. But first, what is autogynephilia? It's paraphilia in which a man is aroused by the fantasy of becoming a woman. Right. So it's not a transvestite, because a transvestite just gets aroused by wearing women's clothing.
Interesting. Okay.
And he's definitely keeping his penis. He's definitely not getting rid of it. But the autogynephilic man very often is aroused by the fantasy of having a vagina. He'll be aroused at the fantasy of having, a menstrual period, or the fantasy of becoming a woman. It's not the clothes, it's the fantasy of having female body parts and female bodily functions. It's
sorry, I just laughing at this message. The guy Chavez is based.
I saw that.
Popping up randomly.
No, we all are here. Yeah.
Thank you, Chelino. I'm sorry, Mia. I interrupted.
Go ahead, Mia. Sorry about that.
So the autogynephilic, your male lesbian, who is just a paraphilic man, that's all, he's actually more likely to have his penis inverted, because that's the fantasy. He fantasizes about going all the way. And he's not, he's attracted to women. Strictly, he is heterosexual, but actually he's attracted to himself as a woman. That's what autogynephilia is. Yep. And being a lesbian, it's not that he wants to be in a lesbian relationship with a woman. It's that by accepting him as a lesbian, you are accepting him as a woman. So if you tell him he's not a lesbian and you ban him from lesbian spaces, then that means that you're saying he's not a woman. And that you cannot say that, because he is a woman to all of these crazy gender cultists. Exactly. It destroys the fantasy. Yeah. And Australia is, in the running against Canada for the most ridiculous nation on earth for this whole gender madness. So, of course, they're validating all of these paraphilic men and calling them lesbians.
Speaking of Canada and Australia, I just want to ask you real quick, Mia, because you mentioned this before. So you speak very openly and frankly, and I agree with pretty much everything you say about gender stuff, but it offends a lot of people, right? Isn't this in Canada? Isn't it considered a human rights violation to speak like this, or hate crime or hate speech crime or something like that? Just to say things you're saying?
We haven't yet. So when we had Trudeau, twice Trudeau tried to pass a bill, an online harms bill, which would have put us rather in line with Australia. They already have theirs.
They already have that. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So Trudeau failed twice.
Oh, thank God.
And then, we just had the stupidest election in the history of democracy, and we now have 4 more years of the Liberals. And so it's coming back. There's no question. It's this online harms thing is coming back.
Oh, no.
Was this, just out of curiosity about that election, if you could help me understand, because I have no idea what happened. I don't.
Well, Trump said he wants to make Canada the 51st state. And I think that was probably the big thing, right?
No, I think it was tariffs. I think honestly, I think it was tariffs.
And then Pierre Poilievre, for some odd reason, I did it once. I did at one point, not anymore. Because it's because he immediately became hostile to Trump, and then that's when he ended up losing to this banker. Canada literally has a banker for a prime minister now. like a guy that has connections to like open, well-known connections to China. I've never seen any. It's almost like I know this is sort of related. Do you feel like Canada's about to go from out of the frying pan and into the fire kind of situation, and with in the wake of this latest election?
Oh, I don't know if it's that, or it's just more of the same, which is just not what we needed. Like, I'll give you my take on the election, and there may be a whole ton of people who disagree with me and are going to be upset with me for saying it. But this is the way I saw it. So
this is a safe space.
I'm no stranger to offending people, so it's fine. Poilievre, okay, first of all, everyone loathed Trudeau, quite rightly by the end. This man, he should have resigned so many years before. His popularity just plummeted and he would not resign. And so Poilievre was so far ahead in the polls. We were looking at a solid conservative majority, a stronger conservative majority than I think had ever been seen before. And then I was actually in DC at a conference the day that Trudeau resigned, and a bunch of Americans were there, and they thought I should be celebrating. And I'm like, no, that means that we're not. Like, if Trudeau had hung on, we would definitely have ended up with a good, solid conservative majority, which is what the nation needs. Instead, Trudeau resigned. And then, we get Carney. Well, they have a leadership race. But Poilievre was still ahead at that point, but he was mostly, his support was because people hated Trudeau. It wasn't really solid support for Poilievre. It was hatred of Trudeau. So already when Trudeau's gone, his support weakens. And then Trump. No, I'm not going there, but like I don't feel qualified to speak about American politics because I don't know enough about it. But I do know that I spent a week in Florida with Peter Boghossian in the middle of February. And when I left, Canada was relatively sane as Canada can possibly be at this time. And when I was flying back from Florida, after a week there towards the end of February, I sat next to a man on the plane, and he was a Canadian man. He's one of those snowbirds who he winters in Florida, but he has to fly back to keep his health insurance valid. I've flown with these types many times. And he's just ranting about Trump. And that's completely unusual for a Canadian. They don't start ranting about politics to a stranger on the plane. And I thought, God, this is weird. What's going on? And then I get back and the nation has gone mad. The nation has Trump derangement syndrome from coast to coast. It's this mass hysteria that is fueled by the mainstream media. Endless, ridiculous stories about Trump that you wouldn't even believe. Like, honestly, there were so many stories about, like, don't go to the US, travel advisories, don't cross the border. And if you cross the border, make sure you take a burner phone because they might seize your phone and then detain you at the border. I know people in my real life who are like, I'm not going to go to the US because they might like detain me and seize my phone. I'm like, what is even going on? It was the mainstream media that fueled all this stupidity. And then Pierre Poilievre, his campaign disappeared. It evaporated, and we ended up with another 4 years of the Liberals. I'm not joking. The stupidest election in the history of democracy. It's frightening. To me, it's actually frightening because I understand what I do. I'm in the gender debate. I understand how the media can manipulate the public. I understand how easily manipulated we are, but that was frightening. The fact that happened in a week when I was in Florida, that the entire nation lost their minds, that's frightening how fast that mass hysteria swept.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like the legacy media, who's probably extremely left-leaning in Canada, right?
Oh, very much so.
So they smell blood in the water, and they know that everybody's pissed at Trump, as they probably should be.
I mean, they're owned by the government.
He's being disrespectful, saying you're 51st state, all this, we're going to take you over, whatever, basically, and more or less, or at least that's the implication.
And the tariffs was a big deal.
Tariffs, right? And I know we're big business trade partners. So, everybody's going to get patriotic, and this is tribalism. Like, this is tribalism 101. And they're going to be joining together. And just like the 9/11 happened and all of America was joined together, everybody was conservative basically for a little bit. That's what happened in Canada, and the legacy media is like, oh, good. Now we could just tell them anything, and they're going to believe it because people always believe what they want to believe.
It's psychotic.
Right. I should make clear just before, I know we got to get to WPATH, but I just should make, I think I missed out a main point here, is that so they clearly wanted Carney. They clearly wanted to destroy the Poilievre campaign. So they're linking Poilievre to Trump in the most malicious way.
I remember that.
And I may be wrong because I've yet to figure out exactly why Carney is better to save us from this attack from Trump. I have no idea why Carney is better than Poilievre, except that the mainstream media decided Carney was better than Poilievre and then pushed it relentlessly on gullible Canadians who fell for it en masse.
Yeah, I heard Jordan Peterson talk about it. He said that Carney has pushed himself or presented himself now as a moderate, kind of like he's a moderate business guy, even though he's been super left. WEF left and a socialist basically for his whole career, and wrote a book about like environmentalism or something like that, in a way that, it's like the environmental communism, take everything, take all your property kind of stuff. And he said, he's terrible, but he came across like, oh no, I'm a moderate. I'm not like Trudeau. And of course, and the media tied Poilievre to Trump, saying he's the Trump of Canada and all that.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's how it goes. And sorry again, I apologize on behalf of Trump. I think Trump probably should have just maybe waited a little bit.
He should
before
have.
he started talking shit.
We would have appreciated that had he waited. We would have.
It does suck.
I will say, you see, the Trump thing, because now this has put me in a very difficult position because now, because of that election that was just all about Trump derangement syndrome, anti-Trump hysteria. And the problem that I now face is that Trump is absolutely spot on gender medicine. He is getting it absolutely 100%. Perfect. Yep. And I am completely in line with Trump. And because Canada's gone mad on anti-Trump hysteria, that pushes the entire nation away from what I'm trying to get across. So I'm in a worse position now as well.
Yes.
Here's my confusion about Canada. They essentially became a blue state. They psychologically became a blue state. I mean, that's basically that's the best way I can describe it. It's like you're a separate country. You have nothing to fear from Trump. We're not like, you have nothing to fear from the United States government. It's not like we're gonna invade your country, because then we'd have issues with the UK because you're still part of the Commonwealth. So to me, it's just like, essentially, psychologically, they've become California. Matter of fact, no, worse, they've become a Pacific Northwest state like Oregon or Washington.
Well, I mean,
psychologically,
economics is not far from my strong suit, let me tell you, but I do think we might have something to fear from the tariffs. I do think there was a genuine concern there, but I don't know why Carney was better than Poilievre. I don't know why that genuine, probably real concern condemned us to 4 more years of the Liberals. I just don't understand it. Yeah, it's hysteria. It's mass hysteria.
It's emotional. Yeah, absolutely. We should get back to this. But that was a really interesting conversation.
No. Well, thank you for answering those questions, Mia.
It is really interesting. So I want to know about GenSpec, Mia, because I actually don't know much about it. And the director of GenSpec? Is that right? Or
GenSpec Canada. So the founder and director of GenSpec International is a brilliant woman and a dear friend of mine, Stella O'Malley. She's a psychotherapist from Ireland. She started the organization in 2021. Basically, it is. So I like to think of GenSpec as the antidote to WPATH's poison. So on the one side, you've got WPATH. They are on this. They live in an alternate reality where it is ethical medical care and something to celebrate, to chop the healthy breasts off 16-year-old lesbians, to invert penises, to create arm flesh appendages and all the rest of it. That's WPATH, and GenSpect is the antidote to that poison that has infected all of society, in that GenSpect just advocates for a non-medical approach and a look at the entire person and look at what's going on in their life and help these people get through the difficulties that they are experiencing so that they can avoid falling into the hands of these monsters on the other side. So it's a very impressive. Stella O'Malley is a very impressive woman in that she has achieved so much on a shoestring. There's very little funding in GenSpect, and she has achieved so much. And I think the best thing, well, she's done many amazing things, but one of the best things GenSpect does is they follow WPATH around the world. It's the most epic trolling, honestly. It's going down in the history books.
That's beautiful.
Wherever WPATH has a conference, GenSpect sets up a conference in the same city at the same time. And WPATH hates this. They absolutely hate it. It drives them crazy. And so they're over there talking about how to, strip a woman's forearm and sew an appendage onto her groin. What's the best technique? And we're over here and we're talking about what's really going on with these people and how can we really help them without disfiguring them and turning them into
sterilizing
medical patients.
Yeah. Gee whiz. That's and it's funny because I love this organization based on how you described it. That's awesome. Let me know if they're ever around New York City, because I'd love to go visit them and or see an event or whatever they're doing. But
we'll be in New Mexico. That's not very close, but we'll be there in September. There's a conference. You should come.
Okay, man. Maybe I'll swing over to New Mexico. I've never been over there. But I gotta say, it's like, you guys clearly are right about this, I think. But it's like the terrible thing is people like you, people like me, people like Isaiah, like J.K. Rowling, and you name it. Anybody who's Helen Joyce, Abigail Schreier, all these people. It's like they think that it's all motivated by like pure hatred or something, and phobia, transphobia. Like people, you guys are just totally motivated. You're just sitting here like, oh my god, I can't stand trans people. They need to stop existing. It's like, really? Is this what everybody? This is it? It's just like is a big hate movement? Is like a big clan meeting against trans people? Like that's all you guys? It's unbelievable. It's like, or maybe, just maybe, it's you don't want to like mutilate children and teens or adults even. And I heard you talk to, I think it was Peter Boghossian, somebody, where you talked about how like you didn't even know you want to be a mother until you were 30, right? I didn't probably know I didn't want to be a father until I was like 35, right? And it's like, if I was for some reason had these different distresses or whatever's going on in my life, autism, whatever the many things could be, homosexuality, and you feel this way, and you're like, well, I don't want to be a get married or be a parent. Like that's not my future. I'm just gonna do this because it's gonna make me feel better. Because this is what these people are telling me, like teachers, therapists, everybody, the government, even different governments celebrating it. It's like that could ruin your life. That could really, really ruin your life, and because anybody who's a parent knows that's easily one of the most fulfilling things you could do with your life, and clearly, and it's like it's really horrible. It's like almost honestly, it's almost like demonic to me that they do this to people.
I've never. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Well, go ahead, Mia. Go ahead.
Okay. Yes, it is demonic. To me, it's truly a monstrous crime to sterilize an adolescent. So. And my thing is, it's not that I didn't know that I wanted to be a mother until age 30. I actually was completely 100% sure that I did not want to be a mother. I was completely certain that I did not want to ever have children, all the way probably to like age 25. Mm-hmm. And so if you look at gender medicine in that, it's a field of medicine where none of the rules apply. There is no other field of medicine where you would sterilize a healthy child. There is no other field of medicine where any doctor would think that the child had the capability to consent. It's only in gender medicine that we that we somehow there's an exceptionalism to it, where they think that these kids, none of the rules of child and adolescent development apply to them, none of the rules of medical ethics apply in this field. And so but there are also signs that they know what they're doing, because if I took WPATH files, when I wrote the WPATH files, I think the worst thing in there was an endocrinologist from BC Children's Hospital here in Canada, in British Columbia. And he is a pediatric endocrinologist. He brought puberty blockers and the whole experiment to Canada in the late 1990s, as soon as the Dutch started doing it. And so he's been doing it to these kids for a long time. And he was talking about, first of all, he says in the WPATH files, he says, it's all good. It's good in theory to talk to a 13-year-old about fertility preservation, but I know I'm talking to a blank wall. They'll be like, ooh, baby's gross. He actually says those words. And then he's talking about how they're not in the right developmental space. They can't really understand it. Bear in mind that he still prescribes the drugs and he still allows them to sign away their fertility and all the rest of it. But even worse than that is later in the conversation, he's talking about there was a Dutch study that came out. The Dutch started this, as I was saying, in the 90s. So they've got the most data on this. And there was a Dutch study that came out that showed, I think it was like 27% of the kids that they had sterilized, when they hit age 30, they regretted it. They regretted the loss of their fertility. And that's only at age 30.
Yeah,
that's only when it starts.
Wait till it's 40, wait till they're 40.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes. And so 27% regret. And this guy, Daniel Metzger, the endocrinologist, is talking about that study. And he says, you know, the Dutch have a study and there's significant fertility regret. And I don't think that surprises any of us. I see it in my own patients. They come back to me when they're in their 20s and they've met someone and they want to settle down. And they can't have kids because of what he did to them. So they see, that was the chilling thing about WPATH files, I think, is that they see what we see. They see everything that we see, but they don't see that they are doing harm the way we see they're monsters for doing this. They somehow can see the harm, but they rationalize it. They justify it. And the way that they justify it is they live in an alternate reality. They see a transgender child. I see a kid with serious challenges who needs help. They see a mythical transgender child with a mismatched gender soul. And the only way to help that child is to chemically castrate, to sterilize, to chop body parts off, because otherwise, you know, they'll kill themselves. So because they don't live in reality, they live in an alternate reality where transgender children exist. And so that's how they don't see the harm. They figure there's nothing we can do. If we don't do this to them, then they'll be miserable and may kill themselves.
This is a Gnostic cult. That it's Gnosticism, because for those who aren't familiar with what Gnosticism is, it's basically a hatred of the physical self.
Okay.
When
Are you familiar with Gnosticism, Mia?
I did read James's Queering of the American Child. There was a lot in there, James Lindsay, but I don't think I got my head around it, to be honest. I don't think I fully grasped it.
So, yeah, it's a Christian sect on the side. I actually studied it on the side, like in a theological aspect, and from what I understand, they believe that I mean, but you know, they claim Christ might have taught this or something like that, and they became heretical. But I think they believe that if you know, let me know if I'm wrong about this, Isaiah. But they believe that the physical world is like a mistake created by like an evil god or something.
The demiurge.
The demiurge, right?
Yes.
And like basically, if I'm not mistaken, they kind of they want to like escape it, and Jesus helps you escape it, right? Escape this physical world.
The physical, yes.
Your body's like almost like a prison, and this world's like a prison that wasn't created by the real God. It was like
exactly right,
like some kind of other god that's like a satanic god or something.
The God that we know, the God that we know, the God that the God of the Bible is actually the bad guy,
right? And they have quotes that say Jesus said that to the Jews.
The demiurge, right? The demiurge is who this bad guy really is, and he's the one who's created this society as a as a prison, because he's just got this hard on for destruction or whatever. And it's the irony is disgusting that if you destroy your own body, if you let your mismatched soul come through, and that way you can become your authentic self. I've never the Gnosticism in this, and then the overall, then the postmodernism and all that kind of stuff. Like, there's a lot of different concepts that, just as someone who was raised in a Christian family, and shout out to my dad Kevin, who's like got a head for this stuff like you wouldn't believe. It drives me insane that this stuff has reached the levels of support by, at one point, the United States government, and then it was imported from the United States all over the Western world. It's sickening to me.
Most medical associations, it seems like most universities, most corporations, or major corporations, it seems like, at least they'll parrot their support of it. Another thing to your point, Isaiah, too, is like
hang on one second, Nick. We have one of a mutual friend, a friend of mine, Matt Osborne, said, Isaiah, have me on to talk about Gnosticism.
Yeah, that'd be fun. That'd be good.
Dude, Matt, you are more than welcome to come onto the show, dude. We've actually been meaning to talk to you. We'll reach out afterwards. I think we can make that happen. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, one more thing, more point. I don't know if you mentioned this or not, but with the demiurge thing about, like, hating creation and kind of, we should be escaping this world. It's like, it also makes sense to want to castrate and sterilize people, because why create more people, and so does the environmentalism stuff as well, by the way, the anti-human, there's too many people in the world, people should just be pet owners, things like that sense. So I could see where, like, I don't know if that's necessarily, by the way, Mia, I'm not saying that this is where this comes from, but it does there is some interesting parallels with it. We'll put it that way.
There are. I mean, I have a different idea of where it comes from. Is
Let's talk about that.
It's transactivism. There can be no doubt. It's the gender soul, anyway, which is the gender identity. Okay, let me go back. So, up until, I would say, the 1970s, being or believing yourself to be a member of the opposite sex, it would have been transsexualism, or I don't even know what, they had various names. Up until the 1970s, that was definitely viewed as either sexual deviancy, paraphilic desire, or psychiatric disorder. And medical interventions were not seen as being something, as a good outcome. Transitioning and chopping off penises and chopping off breasts, that was not considered a good outcome
by anybody.
Well, right. I mean, it's common sense, really,
Yes,
but we abandoned common sense over the last few decades.
Indeed.
And the reason we abandoned common sense is transactivism. So in the 1980s, transactivism starts to form, and they're starting to get together, and they're concocting, like, I always sound like a conspiracy theorist when I talk about this, but this is actually true. This is what they did. They all got together and they created a new alternate reality, the one that I was just talking about, in which not only can men be women, in that they redefine what it means to be a man and a woman. It's a gender identity that makes you a man, a woman, a boy, or a girl. So a man can be a woman, he's somebody with a female gender identity. It doesn't matter that his body is male. So they concoct this whole new reality behind the scenes. They're all having their meetings and their conferences, and they're drawing up little bills of rights and everything, and they're creating this new reality. And that goes on, like, throughout the 2000s. They had a really pivotal moment, Yogyakarta Principles, which is they all meet up in the city of Yogyakarta, Indonesia, in 2006. and they draw up the blueprint for modern trans activism. It is everything that we are living with now: the gender identity, the right to self-identify, the right to modify your body, and it's bigotry, it's transphobia to deny that. That's all there in Jojo Carter. And then they're just basically biding their time, playing the long game, waiting for gay rights to finish, to be won. Marriage equality is one, and then they take all of the infrastructure of gay rights and they just launch their campaign. And that's why we all woke up in 2014, trans women were women, and you were a bad person if you disagreed, and no debate, you're not allowed to debate it, trans women are women. It's because they had done it all behind the scenes. But I think the most harmful thing they did is in the 1980s, 1990s, they just, a bunch of paraphilic men, some homosexuals who had very internalized homophobia, wanted to escape the homosexuality, and they wanted a medical remedy for their gender nonconformity, I suppose. But this group of people, mostly paraphilic men, decide that they do not have a paraphilia. They decide they do not have a psychiatric disorder. They decide that they are perfectly natural and healthy, and this is something to celebrate. Because they did that, and the only way to make this perfectly natural, healthy group of people in society, the only way to ease their pain and suffering is to give them hormones and surgeries. And because that's what they built their human rights campaign on, that's what they built the civil rights campaign on. And so if you question the medical treatment, if you say, hang on a minute, is it a good idea to chop the healthy breasts off a 16-year-old lesbian? Because it's tied to a human rights campaign, they say you're questioning the human rights of transgender people, and therefore that you're a bad person.
Hate speech, hate crime.
Exactly. Yeah. They tied
blasphemy laws.
Exphobia.
They tied the medical experiment to human rights, and you couldn't question the human rights, so you couldn't question the medical experiment. And as well, because they made it natural and healthy, it's obviously a mental disorder. It's obviously a paraphilia. It's obviously not a sign of good mental health to want your penis chopped off. It's obviously not a good sign of mental health to believe that you're a member of the opposite sex. But because they just redefined it, they just decided that it was not a mental disorder. Therefore, you cannot do psychotherapy. You cannot try and help the person overcome their mental distress, because they equate that with conversion therapy. If it's perfectly natural and healthy, why would you try to cure it? Why would you do psychotherapy to cure it? It's natural and it's healthy, and we should celebrate it. So it's
evil.
It is evil.
This is evil. It's no. That is the bog standard definition of calling that which is evil good and that which is good evil. It is a true. It is the essence of true evil. And to me, I mean, I take kind of for me, it was always the Matt Walsh approach, right? Where this is something that, because the one question that these monsters love to ask is, well, how does this directly affect you? Like, it's not bothering you.
Yeah.
They love asking that question.
Yeah.
And my thing is this: well, you're not only lying, but then you're demanding that everyone else in all of creation, you are demanding that they reflect your lies back onto you.
Yeah, the whole world has
you're
to adapt
asking
your
everyone.
nonsense.
You're asking everyone. You're demanding under the emotional blackmail of of self-unalivement.
Nope.
You are telling people that you must give me what I want. You must reflect my lies back onto me because it's a human right. And for me, the inversion of truth. I'm just like I'm just gonna say this real quick. The assault on that which is true, the assault on objective truth, the assault on reality is something that directly affects me as a human being.
Everybody.
Because when you take away, and listen to me very carefully, folks, when someone tries to dictate to you what your reality should be, it is not about doing the right thing. It is not about being a good person. It is about controlling you. And if they can control what you think, if they can control your speech, and if they can control, then they can control everything else. This is like, seriously, this is the genesis of every single issue that we have on the left right now in the United States. And with that, I want to jump into the WPATH files, because in the midst of all this worship, in the midst of this demand, this demand of acquiescence, you would think that these people would really be, that this would be a force for good. But good for who? I want to take I want to go over this excerpt that I saw. Oh, hold on one second. Before I do that, Keith, one of our viewers on YouTube, says, my uncle is a doctor and said if a paramedic shows up at an accident, they have to know biological sex to administer whatever is needed. Obviously, men most times require higher doses of medicine. Again, it's the whole thing about objective truth. I don't care what someone identifies as. Your identity means nothing to me when you're on the ground, dying with this gentleman, if you're hurt or injured or worse at an accident.
Yeah, men and women have different.
Don't know what they're walking into.
Men and women have different, symptoms and heart attacks, for example, and I'm sure various other diseases.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, it's amazing that in many states and I think in Canada as well, we we allow people to falsify their legal documents, first of all, which completely blows my mind. So they can change the sex on their birth certificate, but they change the sex in their medical records. And there's a famous case. It was in the US. I don't remember which state, but this is a woman on testosterone, and testosterone is one hell of a drug. And so it does make for a convincing...
More than cocaine?
I've
never done testosterone, but
no. I tell you, it is fun. It is fun. I got
dude. No, it's a Chappelle show reference. It's a Chappelle show Rick James reference. Please continue. I'm sorry.
Okay, this is important. Yeah, it's important because this woman, she looked like a man, obviously, and she shows up at the emergency room with severe abdominal pain, and she's recorded as male in her medical records, and they miss the fact that she's pregnant. And so she was actually in preterm labor. And because they missed the fact that she was pregnant, because they thought she was a man, because her medical record said she was a man, the baby died. So that's an actual fatality because of her.
No.
And she was so delusional that she didn't tell them that she was a woman, because she enjoyed passing and they were treating her as a man, and that's very validating to her identity as a man, and the baby died. So the real world consequences.
It is absurd, man.
There's something.
I don't know if I just want to say, I don't know if there's ever been a more morally clear way to look at this. Like this is not a difficult, like abortion that's a difficult thing to debate, right? There's different ways to look at that. This is like so clear that I can't even imagine how anybody could ever, and they usually can't defend it, which is partly why they need people to shut up, not talk, needed to cancel them, disappear them, fire them.
No question.
Make it hate speech. That's why, because there is absolutely no argument besides, they might feel better, maybe.
I'm gonna give you,
if they got their nuts chopped off.
I want to read this excerpt. Well, I mean, you could just vote Democrat and chop your nuts off. But anyways,
it's crazy. God, it pisses me off.
So speaking of abdominal pain, this is as I read this, ladies and gentlemen, the question you need to ask yourself is, why would you do this to yourself?
Or your kids.
Why would you do this to yourself? Or why would you allow your child to go through this? I want to present this here. This is an excerpt from the WPATH files, page 22. Under the subtitle, evidence showing harmful effects of wrong sex hormones. Just allow me I'll read this section here. WPATH members adhere to the belief that attempting to help a patient overcome their feelings of gender incongruence and reconcile with their birth sex amounts to conversion therapy. We were talking about that earlier. Therefore, the mental and medical professionals inside the leading transgender health group advocate for affirmation alongside invasive and harmful hormonal and surgical interventions as the first and only line of treatment for patients, including minors and the severely mentally ill, despite knowing the detrimental effects. So they're doing this and they know this. Inside the WPATH forum, there were plenty of discussions about the effects of cross-sex hormones on the sexual function of natal females, as well as natal males who had been allowed to go through puberty and were therefore able to orgasm. For example, in the discussion thread dated March 24th, 2022, a nurse practitioner asked about a, quote, young patient who developed pelvic inflammatory disease after 3 years of testosterone. The natal female, quote, has atrophy with the persistent yellow discharge we often see as a result, the nurse wrote. Vaginal atrophy is the thinning, drying, and inflammation of the vaginal walls that occurs when a woman has less estrogen, typically after menopause. This is frightening. This is frightening. Why would you do this to yourself? Why would anyone do this? You're Mia, like what would this is the first question I want to ask you directly about WPATH. What was it like, going through all of this, going through the research of what people were doing to themselves and what this organization was allowing in the name of, quote, affirming care?
Yeah, it was a quite dark stage in my life. I can't lie, because the report took a very long time to write, and I was immersed in the world of WPATH the whole time, and then reading all of the supporting scientific literature and really understanding what these hormones and surgeries do to young people. So it was definitely, I think that was one of the worst parts for me, was the effect of testosterone on these girls, because they're teenage girls and young women. They'll start them on testosterone as young as 14. And so that girl, I think, was she 17? I'm not sure. There was a 17-year-old in there as well. And so they're pumping them full of testosterone, way more than the female body, like way, way, way higher than the female body is supposed to deal with. And the effects are devastating. So you've got the girl with the pelvic inflammatory disorder and the discharge, but there's also another one who shows up and she has extreme bleeding. I think she had intercourse, and it had, because the walls of the vagina had been thinned so badly by the testosterone that it had caused bleeding, and she'd ended up in the emergency room. And then there are other conversations, and they're talking about how the girls have pain with orgasm, pain with sex. And so I went into the literature on the effects of testosterone on the young female body in this field of gender medicine. And like all of the literature, first of all, I must say, in gender medicine, it's all atrocious. We've been doing this for over 100 years technically, but really, really doing this experiment since the 1970s. And in all of those decades, they have absolutely never bothered to do a single shred of decent science, not in any area in any of gender medicine. But in with testosterone in the female body, first of all, every single one of the studies is saying, well, we don't really know because this is brand new and there's no science to say whether this is safe or beneficial or whatever. But they are recording, I think the vast majority, like 70% of the girls that they're putting on testosterone, they're having this vaginal atrophy, they're having pain when they have sex, and they're having all kinds of debilitating symptoms. And then, so the conclusion of the study will always be, we need more research to figure out how to help these women because this is debilitating. And for me, the conclusion should be, we need to stop giving women testosterone. We need to stop giving these girls testosterone because it's devastatingly harmful and it's destroying their reproductive systems. But again, because we're transported into the alternate reality where they can't even conceive of that. They can't even consider the possibility that what they are doing is a monstrous crime. So that what they do in the WPATH files, and it really upset me, it's, first of all, it's all anecdotal. They're not quoting, they're not bringing in scientific literature because there isn't anywhere, because no one's doing any research. But they'll do anecdotes. Oh, well, I had a patient who had pain and I tried to give her this drug and it kind of helped. Well, no, they're calling her him, of course. They're using the wrong pronouns. But, and then another one will weigh in and say, the other one is like actually a woman on testosterone. So she'll say, oh, I had that and I tried this and it really helped me. So it's all anecdotal, and it's all, try this drug, layer this drug on top of the testosterone to manage the iatrogenic harm that you are causing, manage the symptoms that the testosterone has caused. And not one person in there ever says, maybe we shouldn't be giving women testosterone. And the other thing is they're putting these girls into menopause. Now, this is something I was reading about recently, because for another thing that I'm writing, we know, there are many things that we already know. Even though gender medicine, the research is appalling, there's no long-term follow-up. Imagine like chopping off a teenage boy's penis, inverting his penis, turning him into a medical patient for the rest of his life, following him up for, well, not following him up at all, just doing no follow-up, send him off into the world and not care what happens to him. They do no follow-up. They turn these kids into lifelong medical patients, and then they do precisely no follow-up whatsoever. But then there are things that we know about the human body, and there are things that we know about putting, for example, people going into menopause early. When women go into menopause, early is considered younger than 45. If you're under 45 and you go into menopause, that's considered early menopause. And we know that there are health impacts of that, increased risk of osteoporosis, but also dementia, heart disease, stroke, certain cancers. There are all sorts of health risks, and that's age 45. These monsters are putting girls into menopause at age 16, and then they'll even remove their ovaries. There's one of them, a surgeon in WPATH files, who's talking about removing the healthy ovaries of 20-year-olds, as if that's just a perfectly normal thing to do. But you're putting that girl into the young woman into menopause, and you are guaranteed setting her up not only for a lifetime of medical dependence, but also increasing her risk of so many health concerns all the way. And not one of them cares. Not one of these doctors cares.
So they're basically by doing that with
I've ever seen in my life.
It's terrible. It's despicable. So by giving these girls testosterone, they're basically like aging them in a lot of ways. Like, yes. Right? It seems like 25 years or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, they're gonna eventually have osteoporosis and different health issues. Obviously, they're not gonna have kids. How long do you know how long it takes, like for a woman, even a young woman, like even a teenage woman or woman in her 20s, like after taking a testosterone, like how many doses does it take, or how many months or a year? Or, like, do you have any idea about that?
For what to happen?
For them to like be sterilized, or I'm sorry, to be like sterilized, or just sterilization, like irreversible sterilization. Do you know?
We're not clear on the impact on fertility yet. And again, I'm going to keep repeating this so people really understand how atrocious the science is. Yeah. Nobody is bothering to do the follow-up. Nobody's bothering to do the science. However, we're not entirely sure. This is brand new. Okay, so we have never in all of medical history pumped teenage girls full of testosterone because they got caught up in a social fad and they adopted a fashionable political identity.
And I imagine
We've never
nobody's
done this before.
taking the evidence down and reporting it.
Right.
And not too many people, because that might make them look, might make some people legally liable. It might make a lot of people who are pushing this and calling everybody transphobic haters, they'd have to admit that maybe they're wrong.
Yeah,
So
well,
or it might give people reason to hate this movement and some of the people behind it.
Yeah.
Because I'm telling you right now, I'm there. I'm there. Like I've been there, you know, but when I look at to hear this stuff, it just really, really reminds me of the wickedness of human beings and just how much, like just how Malthusian this all is. It's like, it's just more of this. It's more of this self-destruction, this let's just tear down all of let's tear down society, even down to our very bodies itself. I'm so upset about this.
I haven't even got to the worst part yet. I don't know if you can cope with the worst part. I mean, just on the fertility thing.
Let's do it.
Well, just before I go there, on the fertility thing, the reason we don't know, but the issue with fertility is when you block the puberty really, really early, which they often will. If this kid has been lied to by their parents and all the adults and told that they're a member of the opposite sex from like age 4, which some people would do.
That happens.
The moment they hit puberty, they'll have puberty blockers, and then they will then they'll, if they start cross-sex hormones right after with no break, then they never actually go through puberty. They never actually, the ovaries and the testicles, they never develop. So then you have sterilized that young person for life. If they go through, the girls often will go through some puberty because they have adolescent onset gender dysphoria. Their trans identity starts during puberty, so they've often gone through a certain amount of puberty. So we're not clear on what the impact on fertility is, but they know that there can possibly be infertility because they're offering 11-year-olds fertility preservation. What sort of maniac performs a medical intervention that requires offering a healthy 11-year-old fertility preservation? The only other field of pediatric medicine where you would offer a young person fertility preservation is oncology. If the kid has cancer, they need to have chemo or they'll die. But these are perfectly healthy kids. There's nothing wrong with them. They just got swept up in a mad culture-bound syndrome, in a social contagion. They've been sold snake oil. Basically, they've been told that like this medical pathway is their road to happiness, when actually it's just going to destroy their health and much of their future.
I want to read another portion of your report. This is, I believe it's in the same. That's page 23 actually. Natal males. I'm quoting here. Natal males don't fare any better on estrogen either. When a doctor posted asking for, quote, any insight as to why some trans women may experience significant pain with erections post-hormone therapy, the replies indicated that this is not an uncommon problem. A trans-identified natal male counselor confirmed having experienced painful erections while taking estradiol, maybe because you're not supposed to be on the shit, and described, quote, trying to avoid having them because of this, explaining that even when the erections were not painful, they were physically uncomfortable and not pleasurable. A registered nurse told of natal patients who described erections as feeling like broken glass.
Gee whiz.
God damn. Why would you do this to yourself?
Or your children? or your clients or your patients?
What in God's name, to think all of the untold billions of dollars that goes into this. The Western government, starting with the Democrat Party, this stuff was promoted, and
it was
like this stuff was promoted and celebrated, and you were called all sorts of evil and phobic and whatever, and still are by these people. Why is the fantasy worth it? Is the fantasy worth it? Is living in, I'm dead serious, folks. Is this fantasy? Is this stuff worth it? Is it, for those of you in the DEI industrial complex, is it worth putting people through that kind of harm? You're talking about, well, if we don't do this, these kids will kill themselves, right? So you want them to have erections like broken glass later when you're putting them on wrong.
Which would make me want to kill myself anyways.
Exactly.
By the way,
that's actually an important point, though. Can we go there? Can we just?
I want to say Mia too, and I think it might be exactly what you're going to say. But I just heard from Helen Joyce in a podcast, and she said that like the people who, after they even get the gender affirming care, whether it's surgery, or whatever, they're like still 20 times more likely to commit suicide or attempt suicide. Is that what you're going to tell us?
It's precisely where I was going to go. There's more than that, though.
Oh, there is. Okay.
What you need to understand is, first of all, anyone saying that gender, I hate using the term, but I'll use it, so-called gender affirming care, anyone who's saying that that is life-saving care, that's political messaging. It's not scientific. And the truth, absolutely, the science, the best available science that we have, shows that there's no credible evidence to say that performing these extreme experimental medical interventions on young people or adults as well is life-saving. There's no credible evidence to suggest that it reduces the suicide risk in any way. The science that says that is just basically the lowest quality science. It will be surveys where a bunch of people answer a survey. Do you feel less? Did you feel suicidal before? And do you feel less suicidal now? And they tick boxes, and that's the science that they're talking about. So on the one hand, there's no science to suggest that it does reduce suicide rate. There is science to suggest that, yes, the rate is, there's no massive epidemic that the trans activists like to suggest. That doesn't exist. There is an elevated risk, but when you consider the fact that these young people, pretty much all of them have some serious psychiatric comorbidities that all come with an elevated risk of suicide as well. And so there's no way to disentangle whether it's the trans identity, whether it's the autism, whether it's the borderline personality, the depression, whatever. There's no way to disentangle it. And therefore, there's no evidence to suggest that chopping body parts off and chemically castrating them and pumping them full of these drugs that destroy their health is in any way going to reduce their risk. And then there's what Helen Joyce was talking about. There is almost no long-term follow-up. I'm telling you, I can't stress this enough. They perform disfiguring surgeries. They perform interventions that turn these people into lifelong medical patients, but they do not do any follow-up. So they have no idea what happens to these people. But Sweden did do one great big study where they looked at, it was over a span of a few decades, and they looked at they tried to find every single person who had undergone this treatment pathway in the entire country. They have centralized record keeping. And that study showed that the men had, the average for 10 years post all of these interventions, the drugs and the surgeries, the suicide rate was 19 times higher than the general population. But that's the average. For women, if you drill down into the numbers of that study, for the women who think they're men, their suicide rate was 40 times higher than the average. And this is 10 years post-transition. So
Jeez.
What we can take, and there are other studies. There aren't just those studies. There are a few other studies that have really looked at what's going on with these people after they transition, and not one of the studies is good. Not one of them shows that these people are happy, healthy, and thriving. There is a high suicide risk post-transition, which makes complete sense. I mean, you did that to your body. You thought it was going to make you happy. You pinned all your hopes on it. You've destroyed your health. You've disfigured your genitals, and it hasn't made you happy. It's definitely not difficult to believe that would come with an elevated suicide risk. So, no, anyone saying it's life-saving care, it's just political posturing. It's just sloganeering. It's not scientific.
And I just want to add, Mia. I want to add to the being post surgery. It's like not only everything you just mentioned would make you want to be suicidal, but like, for many people, happiness, a big part of their happiness and fulfillment and feeling of embeddedness in society is finding a mate, right? Yeah. How hard do you think it might be to find a mate if you're trying to find like if you're a trans woman, right? A guy, and you got a fake vagina or whatever. And you may have some real male features, for example, even if you're like a beautiful trans woman and you're trying to find
that's a fucking oxymoron.
Yeah, look, there are some that, like, I don't know if it's Photoshop, but they seem like, I'm like, wow, I thought that was a woman. Wow. So I think they exist. So, but most men, I think they at some point probably want to have kids with a woman. Who knows what that vagina actually is like. I know me, or most men, I feel like would be like, oh, you're not actually a female. Ooh, that's gonna be a problem. And I don't know, anybody who tried to date in cities, it's not easy. And anywhere actually, it's not easy to find a mate in general. Even dating in general, if you're a decent looking guy, decent looking woman, and then everything has to fall into place perfectly, where both people are ready to settle down and commit, and especially now with dating apps. It's got to be almost impossible to find a mate either way. If you're a trans male, a trans woman, trans man. So it's like, how do you think that affects your suicide rate, your depression, your satisfaction with life? It's like, that's the reality of it. That's the reality of it. And they try to act like, no, you're going to be a real woman and everybody's going to accept you and you're going to be so beautiful. And those are the attractive ones. Like I've seen trans women who look exactly like a man with, just no way you can hide it. Their heads are huge and they have huge jaws, and it's just like the big shoulders. It's like, what do you think? How do you think that guy's going to do it at the nightclub or the bar or in a dating app?
Oh, like Chucky Climber.
Yeah, it's like, and it's sad. It's sad. It's really sad. And it's like, do you think that was guys are just going to be, being like, oh my God, you transition, you're just a beautiful woman. Oh, I can't.
I've never. I mean, if you notice, if you notice the degradation of beauty, of what it means to be beautiful. Let's go to I'm gonna go cultural for a second. The degradation of beauty is part of this whole thing, because if they have to get people to believe that which is not healthy, that which is not beautiful or ugly, actually is beautiful. And they have to do so, again, under penalty of force. Like that reminds me of, I believe that was Cosmo magazine or something, where you've got this, this 300+ pound woman doing a yoga pose, and the caption under her says, "This is healthy." And I'm like, since effing when? Since when?
I know you're talking about.
If you notice, I don't know if it was Cosmo, but like, if you notice,
it was
the rest of society over the last several years, whether it's buildings, whether it's art, whether it's whatever, the overall degradation of beauty is a direct consequence of trying to pass off these people as something that they're not. Again, like when you believe the lie, when you ingest the lie that is, well, trans women are women, everything else just all of reality just slides off the table.
The major subversion of reality.
I have never like these people. I'll give you a couple examples. Ella Emhoff. Her pubic hair is about as long as your head hair, Mia.
Who's Ella Emhoff? I just not familiar.
Ella Emhoff. Oh, I'm sorry. Ella Emhoff is Doug Emhoff's daughter, who is the stepdaughter of the former vice president of the United States, Kamala Harris.
Oh, that girl.
Who swears up and down that her bohemian Bushwick looking ass is quote unquote beautiful. The beauty stand again, like it's this, you know, you like living in New York City, you see everything, like green hair with beards and all sorts of stuff, Doc Martens and $150 Birkenstocks. It's like, and all of this stuff is marketed as beautiful. Oh yes, here you've got Sephora ads in the subway of, you know, like you're making up some girl with Down syndrome and you're passing it. I'm dead serious. And they're passing this off as beauty standard. We're getting rid of beauty standards. We're just taking it all. It's like Unilever. And it's worse when major corporations do it. And I hate to go off on this tangent, but I think this is very, very, very necessary to understand. When Unilever went on this video game campaign where this, like, we can be a hero in our own minds, and again, using a fat woman of color, I hate using that term too, but for our purposes here, using a fat woman of color as this, as like this, the epitome of beauty standard, and saying this is what people really should be going for.
And it's like those statues too. Those statues, like the fat black girl, the people on their phone. It's like, do we need a goddamn statue of some asshole on their phone?
And it's all, and I believe
we have enough of that. We have enough of
genuinely believe
like that all day long in Times Square. They're everywhere on Earth. Honestly.
I haven't, you know what? I haven't been to see that statue. I might go tomorrow before I go to work. But the issue, but again, there's a direct correlation, because if you have to make something so ugly as as quote unquote Charlotte fucking Clymer, and he's supposed to be that guy, that thing is supposed to be what's beautiful and stunning and brave. Are you kidding me? I'm sorry.
There are whole armies of women online who don't help either. So like you'll see hilarious men who think that they're women and they are not what anyone would consider beautiful, and they certainly don't look like women. And then there'll be like legions of women telling them, "Oh, you look so amazing. You look gorgeous. You look like
you're
Beyonce.
More of a woman than I could ever be."
Right,
stunning and brave.
But the problem is these autogynephilic men, they're getting a real kick out of that, and that's really feeding into the paraphilia, and that's really feeding into the delusion, and that's pushing them further down this medical transition pathway. But that's setting them up for very unrealistic expectations.
Yes, exactly.
Out in the real world, they're not going to get that response. And although the point you made about the dating pool is crucial, and we don't talk about it enough, you are reducing your dating pool to pretty much zero if you go down this path. And these kids don't understand that. And I have so much sympathy for these poor social contagion kids who are they're lost and they're confused and they get swept up in this. And then the society is funneling them, celebrating their identity and funneling them into these gender clinics where they fall into the hands of doctors who have completely lost their ethical compass. But the kids don't understand what it means even to have long-term healthy relationships, because they're just at the very beginning of their lives as sexual beings. That's and it's being taken from them before they even know what it means. And there you go. That's a crime.
What the hell did any of
makes
us know in
this
high
video.
school,
Right.
middle school, high school? Like nothing.
Don't you just love when they go, oh, well, your understanding of biology is that of high school and middle school, and you're just and you're not elevating your thinking. It really stuff like this.
You need to come back down to earth. That's
stuff like the things, like the stuff that we've been going over makes this video all the worse.
Hello, my name is Admiral Rachel Levine, and I have the honor of being the Assistant Secretary for Health at the United States Department of Health and Human Services. Happy Pride. Happy Pride Month, and actually, let's declare it a summer of pride. Happy Summer of Pride.
That's great.
It's a direction you can fuck.
When I tell you
very much, Dwayne. Here we go. He's broiling. I can feel it.
You know, I actually read a report in the Post Millennial not too long ago that Rachel Levine is actually still wearing that uniform.
Well, it's all a costume, isn't it? So
it sure is.
Why not?
It sure is.
Why not?
You know, he's awful. He's one of the ones who has pushed this, obviously, really hardcore for kids.
Oh, yeah.
Even though he says himself that he's really glad he didn't transition younger, because then he wouldn't have had his own children.
Right.
He's
what
perfectly
a
happy
what a
to
bastard.
take that away from kids. But there's the revelations about WPATH that did get some coverage, but this is one of the biggest stories ever to have occurred in medicine, and almost the mainstream media didn't touch it. But you know, in the Alabama court case, when WPATH had to turn over 2 million emails about how they drew up their completely insane standards of care 8, and in those 2 million emails, we discovered that guy, Levine, was inside WPATH pressuring them to remove all of the lower age recommendations in the adolescent chapter.
Oh my God.
The recommendations, honestly, it was published with the ages, and honestly, they were terrible recommendations. Like a kid could get testosterone at 14 and a mastectomy at 15. Like the age recommendations were awful anyway. But then Levine, who was at the time Biden's Assistant Secretary for Health, Levine is in there pressuring them to remove those lower age recommendations because it would hurt all of the legal battles going on at the state level, where they were trying to overturn the bans on pediatric gender medicine. So Levine was, and they did it. WPATH did it. They took out all of those lower age recommendations because Levine pressured them to do it.
Yeah.
There's one other thing I want to just read in here, because this, being a somewhat bigger person myself, I'm working on it. This kind of hits very, very, very hard. This is page 29. Others inside the Forum Project to surgical restrictions based on high body mass index, which is a common thing. It is widely recognized that obesity increases the risks associated with surgery, leading to complications such as prolonged operative time, increased risk of surgical site infections, and various other complications. Therefore, it is standard practice for surgeons to have a BMI cap for elective surgeries. Let me translate this for our audience. Basically, the less of you there is, the easier it is to perform surgery on you. However, inside WPATH, some members are unhappy about obese female patients being denied elective bilateral mastectomies. A research associate within the group suggested that this denial is the result of quote, systemic fat phobia. and challenge the conventional belief, because that's what these fucking communists do,
Fucking
that
fat
the
phobia, not
patience
again.
of obesity directly contributes to adverse outcomes, instead suggesting that it was the result of, quote, weight bias influencing how patients are cared for and operated on. While acknowledging the high prevalence of eating disorders in trans individuals, this WPATH member expressed concern that withholding surgery could potentially exacerbate these issues. A Washington social worker contributed an anecdote about a quote, client seeking top surgery who had been told to lose weight. This apparently triggered disordered eating.
They're just
So because you couldn't get your tits cut off, you end up catching bulimia. Is that the way? Is that what I'm seeing?
fat phobia.
Fat phobia.
So I'm fat. Yeah. So fat phobia. You should be afraid of fat. You should be afraid of fat.
Yeah.
Healthy.
Risk. Yeah.
Do you want a heart attack?
You like that British accent?
It's very good, very good.
It's terrible. Like no, and you know what? Don't even try to get me going scouse. I know you get enough of that from your neighbors. Like I listen to Wayne Rooney. Look, shout to Wayne Rooney. I love that guy, but
unintelligible that accent.
You know.
Unintelligible most of the time. Like Patty, my boy Patty the Batty. You know Patty the Batty, Mia?
No.
Patty Pimblett.
Patty, you don't know Patty Pimblett? Oh my god.
He's a scouser. He's a Liverpool UFC fighter.
Oh, okay.
And his accent is woo. He's funny. He's great. He's great. And he's a really good fider. But
he kind of gets
it's hard on. He's very funny, but it's hard to understand him.
He starts to talk like this, and he keeps going with his accent, and it's like it just goes crazy.
But it's a lot less intelligible than that.
Yeah, Wayne. No, I've actually
it's hard to understand him. Yeah,
I actually had the privilege of meeting Wayne about a year or two ago when he was the gaffer for DC United. Wayne Rooney, Wayne Rooney. Shout to Wayne. Yeah. I shook his hand, and what's crazy is I've never met this man a day in my life, and he knew who I was. And shout to his
Wayne Rooney knew who you were, Isaiah. Huh?
Wayne Rooney knew who I was. And here's how I knew.
David Villa knows who I am, or he used to. I don't know if he's
no kidding.
Yeah, I wrote an article about him.
He tells me. So Wayne goes. He shakes my hand, and then he says, "Oh, Pete's looking for you." Pete, meaning Pete Shuttleworth, who was his assistant, coach at the time, and Pete's a good friend of mine. Shout to Pete Shuttleworth, great guy. But yeah, so that's how Wayne Rooney knew exactly who I was. And he said it, and he said it intelligently enough. But anyways, we're going off the rails here. How is this a thing, man? How so let me just try to square this this pentagram. I mean pentagon. So give me what I want, or I'll eat myself to death. Give me what I want, or I'll feed into the fat phobia. And yes, the pun is absolutely intended.
Well, first of all, I would like to say, though, I don't know that I believe. I pretty much don't believe anything that those people on the inside of WPATH say. So there's a huge overlap between eating disorders and so-called gender dysphoria, what we're seeing now. So many of these kids, they already have an eating disorder. They already hate their body. That's why they've come to the conclusion that they're trans, because they hate their body, and it's just a normal adolescent angst period, and they get infected with this poisonous idea. But then there's another side to it, in that like I feel almost pretty much the entire field of gender medicine, the doctor-patient relationship as it stands right now is, give me what I want or I'll kill myself. That's gender medicine.
Sounds
It's
familiar.
all of these men saying, if you don't give me fake breasts and invert my penis, I'll kill myself. And that's why they do this in the absence of science, in the absence of evidence, in the absence of any medical justification. The only medical justification really they have is that if we don't do this, these people will kill themselves. That's what the whole gender medicine field rests on.
It's emotional. It's emotional blackmail.
Right, it very much
exactly.
is.
Yeah.
Of course.
It's literally
coercion.
It's like they're holding a gun to themselves and saying, "Give me what I want, or I'm pulling the trigger, and it's your fault."
It's like the crazy ex-boyfriend.
Abusers do exactly. Yeah. That's what abusers do. But I'll tell you,
myself, you leave me.
Right, that's exactly what it is. It's not a healthy doctor-patient relationship, and it's not a sound basis for an entire field of medicine. But there's a wonderful man, I love him. I just interviewed him a couple of days ago, actually, Dr. Stephen Levine. He was in WPATH before it was WPATH, when it was HIBIGTA, the Harry Benjamin International Gender Dysphoria Association. He saw WPATH take a big turn for the political in the late 1990s and early 2000s, and that's when he left, when he realized trans activists had overrun WPATH and this entire field was now being guided by their demands. But he tells a really interesting story of how he got into gender medicine. His very first patient was a man who came to him. He's a psychiatrist. This man came to him and he said, "Yesterday I was sat under a tree and I had a gun to my head and I told myself, I'm either going to become a woman or I'm going to kill myself." And he and Dr. Levine then went on this crazy journey. This is like, I think it's the 1970s, so it's way back. They go on this journey and Levine helps him through the medical pathway, and he gets his breasts and he gets his estrogen and he has his penis chopped off, and then he killed himself. And so that's why Levine has always been really conservative, because he's like, it didn't help this man. This was my very introduction to gender medicine, and it didn't help at all. And I think there's a lot of that. Give me what I want or I'll kill myself. But then when they get what they want, it's not quite what they thought it was going to be. And then they're in a very dark place.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like, I mean, you're talking about eating disorders. These people are not mentally well.
No,
they're not mentally well. So you got to figure that out first. You got to figure out what's the underlying causes of that. Is there some kind of chemical imbalance type thing? Is there some kind of trauma in their past, parent thing, whatever? But you got to figure that out. Do some real therapy.
But they don't want you to figure that out.
Yeah, and
because that's conversion therapy.
That's conversion therapy.
Yeah.
And let me tell you what's sickening. And let me tell you what's even more sickening about this. As someone who, like, mental health is very important to me. It's a very important, like, you know, it's something that we all should be seeking to do. And it's something that, you know, that we should consider the best possible, you know, care in that regard. The affirmative model, which is what these people have actually mandated by law in some cases to follow, where if a person walks in and says, "I feel like a girl," a man walks in and says, "I feel like a girl," the provider, the psychotherapist or whoever, they immediately have to comply. And that affirmative model has spilled over into other fields of mental health. Because what ends up happening is a lot of people will walk in after having self-diagnosed. Like, they'll go on the Mayo Clinic, or they'll go somewhere thinking, you know, and being like, "Oh, I have this problem, or I have that problem." And the psychotherapist cannot ask questions. It goes beyond trans at that point. It's like, well, again, if you say you're a schizophrenic, well, then I have to treat you like a schizophrenic. If I say I'm bipolar, you have to give me the medication. You have to, right? Self-diagnosis. And the problem is, it removes the entire purpose of professionalism. It removes it, because it's like, okay, so it removes expertise. Ironically, we're talking about people who love this. You know, they love appealing to experts when they feel like the experts will say whatever they want, whatever they want or need at the time. So they'll literally go. So what happens is, again, like, it's spilled over into other fields, not necessarily having to deal with gender. Have you noticed that as well, Mia? Like this kind of spilling over into other fields of mental health?
Very much so. I mean, self-diagnosis, overdiagnosis is a massive problem in psychiatry and has been for a long time. When I was writing about DSM last year, I spent a long time, months, reading the DSM. And while I was in there, it's called, it has a name actually. So you know how med student syndrome is when med students are learning about all of these diseases and they start to believe that they have, because they're reading about the symptoms, and they start to manifest the symptoms, the psychosomatically. But there's an equivalent, and it's called psychology student syndrome. And it's when you're reading about all of these mental disorders, you can start to diagnose yourself. That's what I did, diagnosing myself and everyone around me with mental disorders. And so when I was reading, for me, it was ADHD. I was reading the diagnostic criteria of ADHD. It's like, you know, forgets to return calls, often loses keys, is very disorganized, easily distracted. And like, oh my God, I have ADHD. And I don't have ADHD. I'm just a bit disorganized and I can be easily distracted and I never know where my keys are. But you can very easily, if you're not in a good place in life and then you're looking for an answer, you don't have to land on trans. You can land on ADHD or autism or whatever DSM diagnosis you want. And when you apply that label to yourself, then there's a power in a label. It can start to shape the way you see yourself. It can start to shape the way that you're behaving. And so you can actually start to experience the symptoms more strongly of whatever disorder you've self-diagnosed yourself with. And then off you go to the mental health professional and they give you a billing code, and then you've got your diagnosis, and then you've got your medication. So it spans out way beyond trans for sure. It's just trans is obviously, for many reasons, the most dangerous because of the irreversible, brutal medical pathway that comes with that particular diagnosis.
And it often leads to suicide, or, you know, too often leads to suicide. I mean,
yeah, it certainly isn't helping, is it? It's not eliminating the risk, that's for sure.
No. Somebody, in fact, I seem to remember not too, I think, matter of fact, it was last week, where someone who had identified as who identified as trans found himself like over a bridge,
heartbreaking,
and said like, this is a lovely view,
I know
it's a long way down. And I'm like, oh boy,
yeah,
he was like this is real stuff. And it's like, and my thing is this, I feel it's hard for me. How do I put this without seeming like a massive asshole? It's hard for me to feel sorry for adults who are in this situation, right? Like, it's hard for me to feel bad for someone after. Or actually, let me backtrack. I don't know who to feel sorry for.
Yeah.
Because quite honestly, like when I it's very easy for me to say, okay, I look at the hospitals, the doctors, the politicians, the people who belong to groups like WPATH, Rachel Levine. Like, I could look at all these people and be like, you know what? These are indeed objectively some of the most evil people to ever walk the earth. I could very easily say that. And I hope to God one day that after we get through this, if we ever do, I hope to God there are Nuremberg trials.
Mm.
I hope to God, if there's anything to have Nuremberg trials for, it's this. And so, and I don't, and like, so I don't feel bad for the people who are behind this, but for those who took it, for those who take advantage, for those who should I feel sorry for the adult who ends up in a situation like this after they've bought the lie, they've practiced in the lie for years, and they can't get people to participate in the lie with them, and so they go to search for the meaning of life at the bottom of a bridge. Should I feel sorry for these people?
I've thought about this an awful lot. And so, yeah, you're right. It's clear that the kids, the social contagion kids who are just getting sucked into this vortex, we can all have sympathy for them because we were all lost adolescents at one point and we all hit low points. And this is just lying in wait and can just suck them in and send their life on a very different track. So we all can feel sorry for these social contagion kids, but certainly for me, it extends far beyond 18. We're still vulnerable. 18 to 25, certainly, we know developmentally that they're still maturing. Like, I was an idiot in my early 20s, no question.
Who wasn't?
Exactly, because we know from brain development that your brain is not finished maturing. I swear to God, I think I actually felt my brain finish maturing. When I hit 25, I transformed into a different person, and suddenly I wasn't partying all the time, and I realized that I have my whole life ahead of me, and maybe I should actually start looking after myself. So there's something there, and definitely the 18 to 25. I think they're probably the most at risk in this medical scandal because they can consent and they can.
I do have one question for you, Mia. That you said you could literally feel your brain turning at age 25. Are you sure that wasn't the feeling you got when you knew that your car insurance was going to be lower?
Well, actually, I was living in Taiwan, and honestly, I was scootering around Taiwan, and my scooter insurance was it was next to nothing. So no, it wasn't. It was.
Okay.
And I will say as well, I didn't know anything about this whole brain, this neuroscience, but developmental, the brain finishing maturing at age 25 when I was 25. So it's not as if I psychosomatically created this in my mind because I knew that I had hit full maturity. I knew nothing about that, and yet I felt that dramatic shift.
I've had experiences like that too, Mia. I believe you. I think honestly, people mature at different rates too, and I feel like I felt something like that later on. And who knows, that might have been so, but also it wasn't just that. I mean, I kind of made some, with wisdom, you make some realizations and you read certain people and like Jordan Peterson, for example, my early 30s, I started kind of, reading someone he said, listening to his lectures. And he gave me a new respect for like traditionalism, like stuff that I used to think like, why do we care about that? I was very liberal growing up. I'm like, this is stupid. Like, they're just a bunch of scolds that want to control us. And then I kind of understand, you know what? Actually, there's a lot of wisdom to this for society, for individuals, less chaos in your life. You need to have something to create a better society, better families, all this stuff, right? So,
and there are things like that: family, settling down, meeting someone, falling in love, getting married, having children. All of these grounding forces that can come so much. You used to do all of that in your early to mid 20s, and now it's quite common in the early to mid 30s or beyond. So that grounding force that prevents you from getting, tossed around and sent on the wrong path is coming a decade later. So there's a whole decade where people, particularly with this poison loose in society, that they can fall into the wrong place. Like I have sympathy. It's really hard for me to have sympathy for the autogynephilic men. I try, but it's really, really difficult. If you are succumbing to your paraphilic desires in middle age and you're probably married and you probably have kids and you're blowing up your family, I just can't find the sympathy. I can't find it within me. But taking the autogynephilic men and leaving them to one side, adults can be vulnerable. You can have a hard time at any age. You can fall into, you can be seduced by this idea if you're in a really dark place, and this looks like the solution. So I do have sympathy for all of them except the autogynephilic men. And even then, I will say this, that autogynephilia is undoubtedly a difficult paraphilia to live with, and our culture today celebrates it and encourages these men to blow up their lives and leave their wives and leave their children. So in that respect, I do have some sympathy, because I think the modern trans rights movement and the madness of our society today is actually harmful for autogynephilic men as well as everyone else. But it's very difficult for me to find sympathy for a man who succumbs to his erotic desires in that way.
And I want to talk about that with Isaiah's question. I mean, I think, Isaiah, I'm not as strong feeling about it as like, I don't think most people are evil. I think most people are really misled. They're very misled. I think there is some people, if there's people who know for a fact that like, this is bad for you and I'm just gonna make money off of, those people are evil, right? But there's plenty of people, like plenty of parents, for example, who I'm sure a lot of those Hollywood parents that are kind of, virtue signaling or whatever, but they probably really do believe in their minds, I think, I hope, or they are evil. They think like, this, I'm going to be the one that's going to support my marginalized kid who's part of the LGBTQ community now, and I'm going to help them, and this is the way to do it. And everybody's telling me, my doctors are telling me, therapists are telling me, all the media is telling me this, right? So all my friends are telling me this. We're the enlightened ones. It's just like being gay. So I think, I don't think they're evil people, and they're going to probably regret it one day. I imagine they're going to regret it. Their kids are going to be upset. I don't think it's going to last forever, that they're going to be happy with these decisions. But I don't think most of those people are evil. But I do think, and this is where I get a little spiritual and a little bit metaphysical, I do think it's like an overarching like demonic force, or like some kind of thing that like drags people the wrong way. And they're useful idiots. They don't know what they're doing. And that goes for so many different other things. Yeah. Gambling probably is something like that. Getting too deep into pornography, getting too deep into, just becoming like a super hypersexual person or whatever, porn people, porn stars, stuff like that, prostitution, you name it. All those things, I think, you get pulled into, like, it's almost like you're getting sucked down by something, pulled down like a force. And this is one of those things. It seems like it's like so clearly wrong. It's so clearly damaging. It's anti-human, anti-life, anti-family. And it's like, I think they've been captured by whatever that is. And maybe it's just a psychological social contagion. Maybe it's more than that. I don't know, but it does seem like that. And I have experiences and feelings about things that I used to think, I wouldn't have said this years ago. Years ago, I was a very atheist person, and I was like, that's stupid. Like, this is just people being dumb. But I have experiences since then, and things I've learned where I'm like, I'm not so sure about that anymore. I think there's some kind of force that sometimes brings people down the wrong roads, and sometimes they have them by the balls, and some people don't escape it. And who knows what the consequences are in this lifetime or the next? Who knows what the consequences are of that?
I agree. I'm with you completely. This is one of my least popular opinions amongst my own side, is, excuse me, even though I spent all of those months in the WPATH files, and even though I've spent all of these years reading and researching this, I actually don't believe that the vast majority of them are evil. I think there might be the odd psychopath in there who's deliberately setting out to harm patients, but the vast majority, even in WPATH and even in this medical scandal, they are true believers in their whole pseudoscientific constructed reality, where
almost like a religion.
Very much like a religion. Yeah. And I think that's what makes them way more dangerous.
Yes.
They are misguided. They believe themselves to be good people, and the rest of society right now still somehow, certainly in Canada, believes that they are the good people.
And we're the evil ones.
And we're the evil ones.
Us talking right now about this, the way we are, it makes us like very hateful, very evil.
Very much so. But
yes.
but they think that they're not setting out to harm anyone. They think they're
Right.
saving these kids.
Yes.
They think they're saving these the young adults. They think that they're helping. The problem is, and it gets the psychology is interesting. The psychology of the true believer, right? Like the true believer will they'll be aware of the evidence that their belief is wrong, but they have to reject it. They have to block it out, or they have to find a way to fit it into their worldview by rejecting it in some way. And so
there's a good book, Mia, real quick. I want you to continue this. I just want to say there's a book behind me, The Righteous Mind by Jonathan Haidt. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
I've read it. It's a good book. And obviously Eric Hoffer, True Believer. That's the one
I've never
I'm
seen
thinking
that.
of. That's the original, The True Believer. He wrote, it's from the 1940s or 50s, I think. Excellent book, tiny, but excellent. And you really need to read it to understand what's going on now. These are true believers, and they cannot go off track from their belief.
Haidt says morality binds and blinds.
There you go.
So if you're in a moral group, whether it's the left, the right, if you're a freaking Nazi or a communist, if you're in a transgender cult, you have to agree with everybody in that group pretty much almost completely. And everybody who disagrees with you or puts themselves as kind of an opponent to you, they're evil. But you're blind. So it binds you together with that group, but you're blind to all of the bad things you're doing, all the bad things that are happening, all the truths that you don't want to hear. You're like, no. That's not happening. That's a social psychology, morality, like fundamental rule that Haidt brings up. Anyway, go ahead.
Precisely what's happening inside WPATH, and that's. Yeah. I don't know why people get upset with me when I say it, because I genuinely think that's what makes them so dangerous.
Yeah,
if
100%.
They were actual open psychopaths, openly destroying lives and making it obvious that that's what they were doing, everyone would be opposed to them. Nobody would support it. But it's because they are absolutely, completely convinced that they're on the righteous path, that they're helping all of these people, and that we're evil. Sadly, all of society is in their crazy belief system right now. Oh, well, gradually its reality is being restored, but
let's see.
Well, actually, mainstream. I would say mainstream. Isaiah, I think you're going to say this, but mainstream media is behind them for the most part. But I think most society isn't, and especially even here, even in blue states, probably there's probably like at least 50-60% at least. They're probably like, what? I don't want to say anything because I'm going to get in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say anything, and I'm not going to be invited to San Francisco, whatever, school meeting or party. So, but I think most of them are kind of like, don't let that happen to my kids, But
I hate to say this. No. I mean, I know you said you don't you don't believe that most of the people who get into this are evil per se. See, I'm going to disagree with that, and here's why I say that. When you lie, and there was, I'm borrowing this. I am badly paraphrasing this this writing that I came across several years ago. When you lie, you become a little bit more evil on the inside.
But I don't think they realize
when
it.
You lie, they don't realize it.
No, that's my point.
They're lying.
They don't realize it.
I think the demonic force I was talking about is pulling them closer. Ooh, I got you a little bit closer, a little bit more.
Yeah,
because but they don't know that. They think they're doing the right thing. That's our point.
Right, and that's the thing. It's like we're talking about people who 10 years ago would have never fought for anything like this. Probably fought for the very opposite.
100%.
But yes, every time you lie, every time you repeat a lie, you become more evil. And
they don't know it though.
And
I agree.
Regardless of if they know it or not, they're still becoming evil people.
Again, what?
And here's the thing. Eventually, they know it too. Because think of this. Maybe. I remember this. I remember a clip of Helen Joyce talking about how there are some people who are going to be like the Juneteenth people, right? Like the last ones to find out that the war is over. Okay, they're going to be the last one. It's going to be the hardest part The hardest part is going to be getting that they are going to be the last of the true believers, because the lie.
Oh yeah,
and
sure.
even Helen Joyce said this herself. The lie is going to be the lies that they've told. They have compounded and compounded and about to the point where facing the truth would mean facing the irreparable damage that they have done to people, their children, and society at large.
Probably too much for them to accept. A lot of them.
It would be too much for them.
They might not ever be able to accept it.
And quite honestly, it is those people I really don't feel sorry for at all, because there was always a time you could always say no. If something doesn't seem right, it's like, and again, this is something else I feel is another consequence of this. The instinct, if something does not seem right, there's a little voice inside of your head that says, you know what, this doesn't seem right. There is something wrong. And they get into these groups, they get into these amongst these political and in these socio-political silos, and everyone's telling them you're a good person if you believe this. And if anyone tells you differently, they're wrong. And it's like you just become so buried in this.
Yeah, it's human nature, man. That's
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I mean, this is evil stuff. And and listen,
it's beyond
if you want to call me,
it
is beyond evil. And if people want to call me, cold or unempathetic or anything like that, when you assault the truth the way that people have, when you assault the truth, when you insult the truth, when you get on when the Biden White House, the Biden administration, when they put the Progress Pride flag in the middle of those two American flags on the south lawn of the White House and they violated law doing that.
Yeah, they should know better.
But they gave it pride of place. They let everyone know that this is the new, and I'm saying this is the new state religion. Good is bad, bad is good, and this is what we've got. Can
I just make one point, because I do want to make something clear. When I'm saying that they're not evil, I still think they belong in prison.
Yes, I agree. I agree, or at least liable to serious lawsuits, taking away licenses, depending
medical license revoked at the
prison,
very least, ruined by lawsuits, hopefully. But I think a whole bunch of them belong in prison.
Like even parents who do it. Like, I don't know that parents need to be put in prison unless they knowingly know.
I'm talking medical professionals.
Right, I know.
I'm talking the people inside WPATH. There are an awful lot of them that belong in prison.
But they're going to be, they're going to suffer in their own way. Like the parents who put this on their kids, I think eventually the kids are going to hate them for it or be really, really upset with them. And maybe they're going to see the light one day and be like, Jesus Christ, I can't believe this to my child.
Oh, yeah.
You'd assume. Or they might be like Isaiah mentioned, and I'm sure some of these people will be, where they're going to be like holding on to forever that this is the right thing to do. And this is, one of the things I want to mention before was that one of the terrible things that this WPATH and whoever was pushing this whole thing did is they co-opted the home, the gay rights movement and the moral force of that. And like you said, and they said, no, we're equal to that. We're LGBTQ now, right? This is the same thing. It's the exact same thing, which is kind of what Mia was talking about anyways before, but it's like, that's where the moral force comes from for these people, for the Democrats. And they're like, well, we're not going to disagree with that now. We are part of it. We're part of LGBT, whatever. I don't even know when the hell it became LGBT. It used to be just gay rights, I thought, but now it's LGBTQ. And
you're lucky. Do you know what it is in Canada? Is it LGBTQ in Canada? I'm not even joking. It's
QIA plus whatever.
Yeah, 2S LGBTQ. And then, I don't know. We do have an I, a couple of A's, and then a plus. And they're not even joking. It's not even, I thought they were joking the first time I saw it, but they're not.
But that's what they co-opted that. And that's part of the reason, Isaiah, why you're seeing the Democrats do that, because they and of course, it's not an excuse. It's no excuse.
It's not an excuse.
And as well, I think when you throw your support publicly behind something, the Democrats, the liberals here, they went hardcore pro-trans rights. And then it's very difficult. They're probably realizing, oh my God, something's not quite what like what I went through, or things are not quite what they seem. But it's very hard to shift your public stance because you have to say, I got this wrong. And what political party can say, oh, sorry, we vilified you for like a decade. Sorry, we got it wrong. They're never going to say that. So
especially
why
with
not
what the
try?
consequences are. It's not just like, hey, you got this stuff and you lost some money.
Why not try it though?
Many kids. We killed a lot of kids.
Why
we
not
vilified the people
try
trying
it
to
though?
protect them.
We called everybody
really.
who disagreed, who was actually right, hateful, terrible bigots, terrible people,
seriously,
Nazis, fascists.
But seriously though, why not try it?
Wouldn't you have so much respect for them if you did?
Oh, I did.
would have
I do.
so much respect if they said we got it wrong. That's the best case scenario, but they would find it so difficult to do.
Try it.
Do you guys remember the Satanic Panic in the 1980s, where they thought that like there were satanic cults operating in daycares and like tunnels underneath daycares? They thought that like grandmas were sacrificing babies on satanic altars. It was this insane mass hysteria in the US. And Geraldo Rivera was a talk show host who fell for it completely and did a whole ton of like shows on the Satanic Panic and fueled the whole thing. And people went to prison and lives were ruined. And then it all collapsed because it was completely absurd. And Geraldo Rivera, you can watch it. He did a beautiful apology. I'm sorry. I got it wrong. And it's this really long, really heartfelt, I fell for something, I did terrible harm, I'm sorry, I got it wrong. And how much respect would you have for all of the people who are backing this atrocious medical crime if they would just do that, film themselves, actually come out and say it? I'm sorry.
And they should apologize. Apologize to the obviously to the kids and everybody pushed into it, but also apologize to people like us who have been talking about it for a long time. I mean, I've been talking about it for years on social media. A lot of people probably aren't friends because of it anymore. I've been unfriended. I've had art fights with people in my family who think, why do you hate LGBTQ? I'm like, what are you talking about? First of all, I don't have anything against any gay people or bi people or anything like that at all. I don't care at all. I don't care what they do. I have plenty of family who are gay. I have friends who are gay. I love Tim Dillon, who's gay. I think he's hilarious.
Is he?
Yeah, Tim Dillon's gay.
No
he's like the
shit.
funniest podcaster on earth, is from what I've seen. I mean, there's plenty of gay people I admire, and I don't really give a rat's ass. Douglas Murray.
I should have figured that.
Who cares? Honestly, at this point, who cares? No one, truly.
I don't even care if you're trans. I don't care if you're trans. I don't hate trans people either. I, like all of us, are very concerned with what they're doing with children, pushing this, and they're clearly pushing this on children in schools, and even from the White House. Clearly, I mean, look at Rachel Levine from the Health and Human Services saying, "Let's make this a Pride summer."
That wasn't today, was it? That's an old video.
That's an old video. Yeah, that's an old video.
What, the Rachel Levine one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
an old video.
Yeah, that was from what, a couple years. I was on that old. I think it was like a year or two ago, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't that old.
But you know what? Yeah. I'm thinking about Tim Dillon. I had no idea. This is like a revelation to me.
Oh yeah, he's gay. He's gay.
But I should have figured that with his, with his rasp, when he gets on here, he's talking crazy on his podcast. And he talks about California. It's its glowing language. Let me stop.
No, he's funny.
Tim Dillon, who's absolutely fucking hilarious. Oh God.
So if I am going to have to go soon because it's getting
time.
Oh
my God.
I want to do this again though. We got to do, because I think there's a lot of stuff we didn't get to. Before you leave me, I think one important thing to talk about real quick is, did you mention that the test of the 70 people they tested for gender dysphoria, and like 69 of the 70 people 20 years later were just gay, something like that? Is that how that works?
Well, there are lots of in the historic.
It was an old one, I think, an old study.
All of the old literature. That's it wasn't 70 of them. You're thinking about the Dutch study, which was the original.
Yeah.
Okay, so the 70 is the original, the first 70 kids to go through the puberty suppression experiment. and 69 of them were either homosexual or bisexual. Because
69 of 70.
69 out of 70,
Jeez.
right? Because extreme gender nonconformity in childhood is a strong predictor of homosexuality in adulthood. And if you are gender nonconforming in childhood, you're going to suffer from some distress related to your gender. And in this mad day and age, you will be labeled as a trans kid. You're not a trans kid. You're very likely just a future homosexual.
Which means, by the way, if this is indicative, which seems like indicative of how it is in general, the transgender movement, the gender movement, whatever, is an anti-gay movement.
Well, I mean, it means
you're eliminating gay
Absolutely is.
people. You're eliminating gay people.
Is conversion therapy. There's the
Yes,
darkest irony of all. They say it's conversion therapy to try to help these kids reconcile with their body, but of course the actual real conversion therapy is transitioning them, because most of them would grow up to be gay or lesbian if you would just leave them alone. But there's tons of literature. That's just one study. So the reason that we know that gender nonconformity is a strong childhood gender nonconformity is a strong indicator of future homosexuality is because when they were looking for transsexual children, so they take a whole bunch of effeminate little boys. There's a prospective study. So they took a whole group of effeminate little boys, they followed them for 20 years, and at the end of it, pretty much all of them were gay and only one of them still identified as trans. And then they replicated that many times. There are a number of studies that say that this is, if he's an effeminate little boy, he's almost certainly going to grow up to be a gay man, unless he lives in a mad, insane time and we tell him he's a girl and raise him as a girl and then chop his penis off and turn him into a lifelong medical patient. So at the Tavistock, though, it's really dark, because at the Tavistock clinic, which was the gender clinic, the GID service in London, which is now huge scandal, closed down, and they had the cast review and all the rest of it because of it. At the Tavistock, there was a dark joke behind the scenes that soon there'll be no gay people left. They knew that they were transing.
Yeah, exactly.
They knew.
Homosexuals. They knew it. There was the dark joke going on, and a lot of them felt terrible.
Wow.
Like
that's evil. That is evil.
But a lot of them felt terrible about it. They quit. There were whistleblowers. There was all sorts going on, and because the Tavistock was very much under the sway of one of those parents, a woman who transed her little boy and took him to Thailand to have his penis inverted at age 16 because it wasn't legal in the UK. That was
Helen Weberly, wasn't it?
No, that was Susie Green. She was the CEO of Mermaids, which was this insane charity for so-called trans children.
Oh my God, I know
she was very much pressuring and lobbying the Tavistock, and she was pervasive and everywhere on the inside. Even though she didn't work there, she was with this charity. And so there was so many whistleblowers. There were so many people on the inside raising the alarm. There were so many people who were uncomfortable, but because she was on the inside and they were guided by ideology, they just couldn't listen. They couldn't stop doing what they were doing. So they had to keep transing away the gay. And that's the irony, right? Because people support trans rights because they think it's the next gay rights. But what they're actually supporting is a direct attack, not only on the not only the medical conversion of future gay and lesbian people, but also remember what we talked about at the beginning. There's the male lesbian and the attack on lesbian spaces and the attack on gay men. So the attack comes in both directions, and it really truly is
an
the
attack
most
on women too.
Homophobic movement. So if you supported gay rights, you absolutely must not support trans rights.
Right.
So people are getting it backwards.
Last question for you, Mia. I have Chileno actually, who's been watching the show this entire time. Want to give him a shout out for
thanks, Chileno. Thanks for recognizing that I am indeed based.
You got to be in this business, bro. He wanted your thoughts on, since you're in Canada, as we close. He wants your thoughts on the MAID program up in Canada. I guess because it's more of the insanity and literal suicidal empathy that's going on up there. But he wanted to ask what your thoughts were on it, and if there was anything that I guess correlates to what we've been talking about tonight?
It's somewhat similar in that, I mean, I'm baffled by it, to be honest, because I always was, I did support euthanasia for terminally ill people who are at end of life, and there may be suffering and in terrible pain, and euthanasia to me seems like the compassionate approach for those who desire it. But we're talking actually terminally ill, you've not got very long left at all. And then the slippery slope, that I don't understand why the slippery slope exists, but it clearly does, because it exists in Canada, where we're now willing to kill 20-year-olds who have diabetes, and they just found out that they're going blind, and they're in like the pits of despair and depression, and so they apply for MAID and they get approved. And it's like, why do we have to have such a slippery slope? Where are the guardrails? It seems to me that you should be able to have the guardrail. You should be able to, if somebody is terminally ill, why can you not draw that line? But again, it's this pressure. It's this, well, these people need it too, and we're going to put the political pressure. And I'm not as clear on MAID. I've read some horror stories, and we are branching, I think, even further into I don't know if it's been approved yet. There were 3 stages when they legalized it, and so I think we're at stage 2 now, and that is where we will kill the 20-year-old with diabetes. But I think we're branching into stage 3, which is we'll kill mentally ill people. I'm not sure if we've made it there yet, though, and I'm not an expert, so please don't quote me, but the slippery slope is there.
More that anti-human thing I was talking about, the very anti-human, anti-human force that's like taken over much of the left in a lot of ways, I feel like. And you can see it in a lot of different ways, whether it's being super hyper pro-abortion, which some of them are, like celebrating in the streets, bringing the abortion clinic to the DNC. Did you see that, Mia?
Oh my
the
God.
IUD inflatable, wacky waving inflatable. Yeah. Oh my God.
But anyways, we got to let Mia go.
Mia, thank you so much for coming on to our show. We greatly appreciate it. You have been a remarkable human being on this. It is a pleasure to call you a friend, and you are welcome at any time to come back.
I mean, we should do this again.
I mean that.
Talk more about stuff we probably didn't touch on, and also anytime you want to promote anything, any new paper you want to talk about, book, event, and you just want to promote it, just let us know, and we'd love to have you back on.
Thank you both so much for having me, and I'd love to come back on. I've got lots to say. I never run out of things to say.
Neither do we. That's why we're doing this.
Neither do we. And yes, we thank you. You can follow Mia below at _Cry Mia River. That's _Cry Mia.
Anything else?
River.
Anything else you want to promote? Like websites, anything?
I think you can find everything from my Twitter. It's all there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all, you can find it. It's all in my bio.
I got you.
Great.
Well, thank you again,
Mia. Thank you, Mia.
We greatly
have a great night.
Thank you so much.
Have a great night. Thank you. Stay safe. Good night.
That was great, man. And yeah, we still have more to talk about, so I definitely love to have her on again. But we covered some good ground there. We covered a lot of good ground there, man. That was an interesting conversation.
We did. I am floored,
dude,
at the level of depravity.
Did you read the WPATH files? Because I didn't read the actual. No. I watched a lot of her podcasts and stuff and some reports, but I didn't read that. It looked like you looked into it a little bit.
I knew of them, but I never read them. Okay, it's like with so much that's been going on in life and in politics. I mean, while I'll give you a great example of why we can never just sit down and actually read shit.
It's hard.
At the same time that we've been having our show, there was apparently a paleo-communist attack in Colorado. Another free Palestine berserker. Yes.
And they just killed the Jewish couple a couple days ago too. And that was a far left assassin.
Yeah. And this guy, they're still collecting information. But yeah,
in Boulder. Oh my gosh, people. Wait,
Boulder,
when are we going to update the narrative? The legacy media, I doubt they will. But when are we going to update the narrative that the far right is the most dangerous risk to Americans, like Biden was saying, whatever the hell he was saying, domestic terrorists of the far right? It's like clearly it's the far left now, guys.
It is.
Clearly,
I mean, I'm sorry. And it's just like I said a couple of weeks ago. Okay. It's time to start watching yourselves around leftist folks. Yeah. It absolutely is. I'm sorry. Like there's, if I want, permit me for a second to sound a little bit conspiratorial, but I think we're past that point. It is time to start watching yourselves around leftists. It genuinely is. It is time to start watching yourselves around these people. If you have
and report anything suspicious
right now, if you see something,
say something,
especially if you're here in New York. These people are getting more and more unhinged. They are fucking terrorists, and I am tired of this. I am tired of this. They are successfully globalizing the Intifada, and they are bringing Palestine to our shores, which is something it should never ever have come across. Keep this shit away from us and watch yourselves around these people. I'm gonna tell you right now. Again, this is like the hideousness of what we've been talking about. It's driving, like it's honestly, it's maddening. It's like, how in the world, how did we get to a point where this madness was something that could get your First Amendment rights taken away?
They tried to do it too, man. Yeah.
Could get you fired from your job.
Yeah.
Could get you unpersoned on social media and even debanked, depending on who it was you banked with in the last 5 years. Could get you like
kicked out of your family.
Kicked out of your family.
Rejected by your kids or rejected by your parents, whatever, depending on who you
like. I have a genuine and maybe this is because I'm tired. I've had a very long weekend. The idea that this to some people was worth hanging the entire civil rights movement on.
Yeah.
Jeez. You know what I hate the most about this movement, and I didn't say this to Mia, but I'm gonna say this now. My biggest issue with this whole gender cult is that it is largely a white man's movement.
Yeah,
it is a movement that is first off, we're talking
promoted by a lot of white women too, by the way.
Promoted by white women, participated in. We're talking about less than 2/3 of 1% of the population. Yet that 2/3 of 1%, the powers that run this world thought it was so utterly important that this movement be put to the forefront for this small amount of people. And in that group,
with great costs, man. You gotta remember this.
Great costs.
Political costs, first of all, because that's a big part of why the Democrats and the left are losing, I think, is because of this. But the kids, the teens, the adults that are being pushed into this, man. And like, I do feel bad for them because like a lot of them are mentally ill. A lot of them are in this moral tribe, this moral matrix where they're like, maybe I am trans, and everybody's like, yeah, you're trans. Oh my God, you're stunning and brave and beautiful. And everybody pushes you, and it's like you're getting sucked in by that force I'm talking about. Like you're just going, you're getting sucked into it. And then like, then you're on that conveyor belt to like, all right, puberty blockers, or all right, hormones. All right, I'm getting surgery. I'm getting my tits removed, my dick and balls removed. And it's like, that's monstrous. I mean, like you're a physical like freak afterwards in a lot of ways. You can't have any sexual anything with anybody. You can't have kids. You can't have your own kids. You can't, it's like you
you're
can't have your own
ward.
family unless you're
a ward of the pharmaceutical state.
Unless you adopt. Yeah, it's
you're it's like
brutal.
You become the market that they've kept. Like, you're just, at this point, you are just merely a money harvest. And if they aren't harvesting money from you, they're harvesting money from your insurance company, which in turn raises everyone else's
premiums. Yeah.
And again, all of this for a tiny, tiny minority of predominantly white men. I'll never forget in 2021 when I lost my Twitter account for the first time, and I was permanently suspended, well, for 119 days. I said that this movement was white men protecting white men, and it's a train that is never ever late. It goes deeper than that. It is white leftists protecting white leftists. And we are seeing an ascendancy, and I'm not just talking trans. There is an ascendancy right now amongst these white leftists, and it's going from it's this suicidal empathy. Chris Olin, shout to this dude. Chris Olin said it. Suicidal empathy. It's like our empathy, our desire to make everything better for everyone else who are quote unquote less fortunate or perceived as less fortunate. Our desire to make everything better means we've got to destroy everything. Why? We've got to destroy all of society now because this tiny minority of people would feel bad. Yeah, and again, it's never
totally
seen
insane.
Yeah, it's totally insane. I want to thank each and every one of you. This has been a big show. I thank all of you. We've got 6,165 viewers tonight. I greatly appreciate every single. We're on multiple platforms. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us. We leave you tonight. I wanted to shout out Connor Antley once again. He did this.
Uh-oh.
Connor Antley, DC United. He gave us this. Hold on a second.
Nice. Kind of looks like McBride.
This is a set piece. We played FC Cincinnati. We're talking about a club that are easily one of the most dangerous in the league at the moment. And on a corner kick, 19th minute, this asshole goes and does this.
Paid for him. He's returning the favor. Here's Pirani, lifts it to the far post. Antley!
Oh no!
He's returning the favor. Here's Pirani, lifts it to the far post.
Why is it freezing?
Muscles one in.
Are you serious?
Muscles one in. DC United flex right back.
It froze.
Yeah, we saw it before when you first played it, Isaiah. But it's a nice header, man. Nice header, far post.
Yeah.
But congrats to Connor. What's his name? Connor
Antley.
Connor Antley.
This guy, in fact, he has a newsletter that he recently started, and I want to make sure that I get the name right of this. It's called Prodigy Soccer. Okay, this is the guy. He is the first player. He is the first player in history to play in every tier of the United States soccer pyramid. He is the first guy to go through all the levels in the soccer pyramid. Connor Antley, and yeah, I'm gonna big him up tonight. That dude works his ass off. He had a debilitating. He had a knee injury, blew his ACL last year playing Atlanta United away. And let me tell you how much of a fucking warrior this guy is. He blew his knee somewhere like the 89th minute of that match and stayed in the game. blown ACL and everything. He fought through to the very end of that game. That man is a warrior among soccer players. Beautiful family. Okay. Hannah and his two little girls, fantastic people. I've had the pleasure of meeting them all. Great people. And I just want to give some love to my boy Connor tonight for a fantastic, well-worked goal. And I'm looking forward to seeing much more from him as he grows with DC. And he is, and I'm going to just say this. The guy's a leader. He's a strong leader on the club. I love his work ethic. And I love his energy, what he brings to this club. Really appreciate it as a supporter of this club. So, and no, you're not undersized. Okay. You're not undersized. Stop that. Anyways, that's our show tonight. We've covered a lot tonight, and we want to thank each and every one of you for stopping by. Once again, you can support the show at buymeacoffee.com/apostate radio. You can follow us at Isaiah L. Carter and also at Nostra Chavez. Can we get this guy to 10,000 followers?
Yeah.
Please, can we get Nos to 10,000 followers to get this month to get this woke Ramadan month started off right?
Get me into 5 digits, guys. Get me into 5-digit club. Please.
Yes, get this. Yeah, let's get this man into the 5-digit club. Thank you again. Next week we've got a big show. We're gonna have Mr. Seneca Scott coming to us from O-Town. Well, do they call Oakland Oaktown? O-Town? No, that's Orlando.
I thought they did. Let me see. Oaktown. Let me look up Oaktown.
Well, Seneca Scott is a big political. It is O-Town.
Well, yeah, it's saying Oaktown's a name that can refer to a few different things, notably a town in Indiana and a nickname for Oakland, California. So
okay. All right. So it is O-Town. So yes, we're gonna have. So we're gonna have Seneca Scott on. Seneca Scott's a big political activist, a fellow apostate like us.
Ooh, another apostate. I like that.
And he is going to give us the lowdown on something that these communists have been sneaking into local elections, and that is ranked choice voting.
Ooh, I don't like that.
You are not gonna want to miss this.
That's gonna be good.
You are not going to want to miss next week's show. The evils of ranked choice voting. We're going to be talking about that with Mr. Seneca Scott. Anyways, thank you for joining us tonight. We greatly appreciate it. Y'all have a great week. Don't work too hard. Stay safe, and we'll see you next Sunday.